The boundary where the ocean ends is rarely a sharp line. It is a slow, muddy surrender. The pristine, crystalline blue of the open water begins to fray. It shifts first into a clouded emerald, and then, as the land exerts its gravitational pull on the sea, the water becomes a heavy, suffocating brown. This is a realm of suspended silt, of decaying leaves, of tannins bleeding from roots and soil. It is a place where sunlight is swallowed whole within a few feet of the surface. Distance evaporates. Visibility collapses into a claustrophobic sphere of just a few body lengths. To anything that relies on its eyes to survive, this water feels broken. It feels like a void. But in this sensory darkness, the bull shark finds its absolute perfection. Most apex predators of the ocean are creatures of extreme clarity. They are engineered for the vast, uninterrupted blue. Their survival depends on resolving silhouettes from far away, on calculating the geometry of an interception across wide-open distances. A great white or a mako need space. They need the visual runway to accelerate, to plan, to execute. Take away their sight lines, and you take away their primary advantage. The bull shark, however, completely rejects its reliance on the visible world. It does not just tolerate the gloom of flooded deltas, coastal estuaries, and winding inland rivers. It actively seeks it out. It brings lethality of the ocean into spaces where certainty goes to die, and where mistakes of the prey are mathematically unavoidable. To understand the terrifying success of the bull shark, you have to understand the invisible biological wall that stops almost every other marine predator dead in its tracks. It is a barrier of salt. For a typical shark, swimming upstream into fresh water is a physiological death sentence. Their cells are balanced for the high salinity of the ocean. If they enter a river, the fresh water aggressively rushes into their cells in a desperate attempt to equalize the salt concentration, a process known as osmosis. Their cells would swell, rupture, and the animal would suffer a catastrophic biological failure. But the bull shark bypasses this barrier with one of the most astonishing internal mechanisms in the natural world. It possesses highly specialized kidneys and a complex hormonal regulatory system that constantly monitors and adjusts the salt balance within its blood. As the shark leaves the ocean and slides into the mouth of a river, its internal machinery shifts gears. Its kidneys hold on to vital salts while flushing out massive amounts of fresh water. It does not suffer. It does not weaken. It smoothly transitions across the boundary that kills its rivals. Because of this, rivers are not accidental detours for the bull shark. They are not places it gets lost. They are deliberate, calculated extensions of its hunting grounds. Every transition zone, every brackish inlet, every muddy river mouth becomes an exclusive corridor of opportunity. When a bull shark moves into these river systems, it enters an environment where the rules of the hunt are completely inverted. In the open ocean, a fish can flee in 3 dimensions, but a river is a trap made of geography. It is constrained by muddy banks, submerged root systems, fallen trees, and shifting sandbars. Every bend in the river reduces the line of sight. Every narrow channel concentrates the movement of anything swimming through it. For a local river fish, these submerged structures feel like home. They feel like shelter. But for the bull shark, these structures are funnels. The shark does not need to chase prey across open distances. It simply uses the natural topography of the river to cut off escape routes before the prey even knows it is being hunted. In this turbid water, prey animals rely almost entirely on their lateral line system, a network of sensory organs running down the sides of their bodies that detects vibrations and pressure changes in the water. They navigate the darkness by feeling the displacement of water around them. The bull shark weaponizes this. It moves through the murk with a deliberate, heavy calm. It does not thrash. It does not generate the panicked, erratic pressure waves of a standard predator in pursuit. Its approach is not completely silent, but it is deeply ambiguous. It registers on the prey's lateral line, not as an incoming missile, but as a vague, shifting pressure. By the time the prey's brain resolves that ambiguous pressure into the shape of a massive predator, the distance is already gone. There is no warning phase. There is no shadow sweeping in from blue. There is only a sudden, devastating presence. This strategy requires a specific kind of patience and a total lack of dietary discrimination. The bull shark is the ultimate opportunist. It is not a specialist holding out for a specific migration of fat-rich seals or schooling baitfish. It operates as the apex garbage disposal of the coastal and riverine ecosystems. Its acceptable menu includes other fish, stingrays hiding in the mud, crustaceans, turtles, birds resting on the surface, rotting carrion washed down river, and occasionally mammals that wander too deep. This incredible flexibility means the bull shark never has to wait for perfect conditions. It never needs a flawless ambush. If a target moves incorrectly, if it lingers too long near a submerged log, or if it simply fails to read the ambiguous pressure wave of the shark's approach, it becomes food. When one food source dries up, the shark simply shifts its attention to whatever else occupies the water. It does not wait for the system to provide. It consumes the system itself. This seamless intersection of murky water, geographical confinement, and an indiscriminate diet is what brings the bull shark into such frequent, unnerving proximity with humans. The beaches near river mouths, the coastal inlets, the shallow estuaries, these are places where human beings often feel a false sense of security. The water is shallow, the waves are subdued, and the environment feels manageable from the surface. But beneath that muddy surface, it is one of the most complex, deceptive sensory environments on Earth. The outflowing fresh water mixes with the salt water, creating layers of differing densities that bend light and warp perception. Small prey species flock to these nutrient-rich zones, and the bull shark follows right behind them. The shark does not actively seek out humans, but in water where you cannot see your own feet, identification errors are a statistical inevitability. The bull shark operates comfortably in total sensory uncertainty. It does not need visual confirmation to investigate a shape. It tests its environment with its body, with its mouth. An encounter in this water lacks any buffer zone. A human swimmer has no horizon to scan, no approaching fin to track. The first realization of the animal's presence is often physical contact. The fear surrounding this predator is not born of malice or monstrous intent. It is born purely of proximity. It is a chilling realization that in the murky shallows, a creature perfectly adapted confusion is navigating the darkness alongside you, unseen until the very last second, beyond the immediate mechanics of the hunt. The bull shark functions as a profound ecological connector. Because it moves so freely between the salt and the fresh, it transports nutrients and energy upstream, linking vast ecosystems that would otherwise remain totally isolated. Its presence dictates the rhythm of life far inland. Fish in the river systems alter their behaviors, shift their feeding times, and abandon otherwise perfectly good habitats, simply because the water carries the faint chemical signature of a bull shark. Fear becomes the invisible architect of the river. The shark's movements are also heavily dictated by temperature. Rivers and shallow estuaries absorb the sun's heat much faster than the deep ocean. The bull shark chases these thermal gradients, moving into warmer inland waters to supercharge its metabolism, allow it to digest faster and hunt more aggressively. It is not tied to a rigid migratory map. It is fluid, adapting its routes based on the temperature of the water and the availability of whatever prey happens to be passing through the murk. The bull shark is a masterclass in integration. Its physiology unlocks doors that are permanently sealed to others. Its sensory systems cut through the blinding silt. Its indiscriminate palate ensures it never starves. And its hunting style turns the tight, blind corners of a river into inescapable dead ends. It does not thrive in spite of the mud and confusion. It thrives because of it. It is the undisputed specialist of uncertainty. As the current pushes the brown water downstream, obscuring everything beneath the surface, the bull shark glides along the invisible edges of the riverbed. It waits for the corridor to narrow, for the options to vanish, and for the murky water to deliver its next meal directly into the dark. The coral reef is a masterful illusion. From the sunlit surface, it presents a facade of boundless freedom, a sprawling, three-dimensional metropolis of color where millions of organisms swim, graze, and dart through open water. But the reef does not end at its brightly lit exterior. Beneath the sprawling coral heads, beneath the calcium carbonate shelves and the shifting rubble, the environment collapses inward. It folds into a dark, suffocating network of fractures, pipes, blind alleys, and claustrophobic crevices. Down here, the open ocean is a memory. Space compresses. Light weakens into shadow. And movement is no longer dictated by speed or agility, but by the brutal, unforgiving geometry of the stone. This is the exclusive domain of the moray eel. To understand the moray eel, you must discard everything you know about how marine predators operate. The moray does not patrol the reef boundary. It does not chase terrified prey across open water. It does not rely on sudden, explosive acceleration to run down a fleeing target. Instead, the moray eel redesigns the entire concept of combat around confinement. For this animal, the most valuable real estate in the ocean is not the open blue where water is free to flow, but the jagged cracks where water is forced to narrow. A moray eel rarely leaves the safety of these tunnels completely. Its long, serpentine, muscular body remains anchored deep within the rockwork, coiled and braced like a living, breathing cable threaded through the stone. Only the head protrudes into the light, hovering just at the threshold of the doorway. Its mouth opens and closes in a slow, rhythmic, hypnotic pulse. To a human diver, this constant, gaping display is almost universally misunderstood as a posture of aggression, a threat display warning the world to stay back. But the truth is entirely mechanical. The moray is simply breathing. In the tight, restrictive spaces it occupies, it cannot rely on forward momentum to push oxygen-rich water over its gills like a pelagic shark. It must manually pump the water into its mouth and force it backward. The gaping jaw is not a threat. It is a slow engine of survival operating in the dark. Stillness dominates the moray's posture. It waits with a terrifying, frozen patience. It does not need to swim out and find food because the environment is already doing the heavy lifting. Small reef fish survive by constantly moving along the edges of the coral, obsessively inspecting cracks and holes for shelter, grazing opportunities, or escape routes from open water predators. To a panicked or curious fish, a dark hole in the coral looks like salvation. It looks like safety. But the moray eel, every hole it occupies is a meticulously calculated kill space. The geometry of these narrow spaces decides the outcome of the encounter long before physical contact is ever made. In the open water, a small reef fish is a marvel of agility. It is capable of hairpin turns, rapid directional changes, and explosive bursts of acceleration. But the moment that fish crosses the threshold of crevice, every single one of those evolutionary advantages evaporates into nothing. Inside a tunnel, the turning radius is physically limited by jagged walls. The frantic, rapid tail beats that would normally propel the fish to safety only push water uselessly against the unyielding rock. The panic of the prey produces acoustic noise and chaotic vibrations that have absolutely nowhere to dissipate. The moray eel understands this mathematical disadvantage implicitly. It does not need to outswim the fish. It only needs to occupy the correct doorway. When the strike finally comes, it is a masterclass in localized violence. It is sudden, but it is not expansive. The moray does not launch its entire body out of the hole in a reckless lunge. To do so would mean surrendering its leverage. Instead, it snaps forward headfirst, extending just far enough to clamp its jaws onto the prey. There is no testing bite. There is no warning nip. The jaws close once, with absolute commitment, locking the fish in place. This initial bite is not designed to kill. It is designed purely for control. The vast majority of the moray's heavy, muscular body remains completely hidden inside the tunnel, pressed hard against the rock walls to create an immovable anchor. The prey, caught just outside the hole, suddenly finds itself tethered to something infinitely heavier, stronger, and completely immovable. What follows this initial strike is one of the most mechanically unsettling behaviors in the entire natural world: the backward drag. Instead of pulling the prey out into the open water to wrestle or swallow it, the moray eel shifts into reverse. It slides backward, retreating deeper into the suffocating darkness of the hole, and it drags the struggling prey violently in with it. This maneuver brilliantly reverses the expected direction of a fight. In a normal predatory encounter, prey tries to flee forward away from the jaws. But here, the prey cannot flee forward because it is actively being pulled inward. It cannot turn around to fight or assess the situation because the narrow tunnel walls physically prevent it. The harder the fish thrashes, the more it wedges its own body against the rough coral, increasing friction and violently reducing its own chances of escape. The fight instantly becomes a brutal tug-of-war that only operates in one direction. But it is in the darkness of this backward drag that the moray eel reveals its most horrifying and specialized anatomical adaptation. Deep inside its throat sits a second, fully functional set of jaws known as the pharyngeal jaws. These are not a biological anomaly. They are a highly evolved solution to a very specific problem of physics. Most fish, including massive predators like groupers, consume their prey by generating a powerful vacuum. They rapidly expand their oral cavity, creating a sudden drop in pressure that sucks the prey and surrounding water directly into their stomach. But the moray eel cannot do this. Inside a narrow, restrictive tunnel, there is simply no physical space to open a mouth wide enough to generate that kind of suction flow. The physics of the crevice forbid it. Evolution's answer to this problem is the stuff of nightmares. Once the moray's primary outer jaws have secured the prey, the pharyngeal jaws resting deep in the throat detach from their resting position. Powered by specialized muscles, the secondary set of jaws launches forward inside the eel's mouth, reaches past the primary teeth, and bites down securely onto the prey. Once the inner grip is established, the pharyngeal jaws retract, mechanically dragging the prey backward down the throat toward the digestive tract. It is an industrial, mechanical, and devastatingly precise method of consumption designed exclusively for spaces where suction is impossible. The importance of this dual jaw system is not its speed, but its absolute inevitability. Once the pharyngeal jaws make contact, escape becomes a physical impossibility. The tunnel limits movement. The outer jaws hold the anchor, and the internal jaws operate like a relentless conveyor belt. The moray eel does not need venom. It does not need crushing bite force to shatter bones. It does not need to deliver repeated, tearing bites. The geometry of the space does the killing. The tunnel removes all options, and the eel simply capitalizes on the physics of confinement. The structure of the moray's teeth perfectly reinforces this grim strategy. They are not designed like the serrated blades of a shark, meant for slicing through meat. They are long, needle-sharp, and curve aggressively backward toward the throat. They are designed to hold. Once those teeth sink into scales and flesh, they naturally resist any outward movement. If the prey attempts to pull free, the backward curving shape of the teeth only drives them deeper, turning the prey's own struggle into the mechanism of its destruction. This makes the backward drag exceptionally lethal. With every single centimeter the moray retreats into the darkness, the prey's disadvantage multiplies. The margin for survival collapses under the weight of darkness, pressure, and the complete loss of maneuverability. The reef itself acts as an accomplice in this trap. The crevices a moray occupies are rarely smooth, uniform tunnels. They twist, they branch, they pinch, and they collapse unpredictably. As the prey is dragged violently inside, it may suddenly hit a sharp bend or a sudden constriction in a rock that further pins its body. Even if the moray briefly loosens its outer grip to allow the pharyngeal jaws to reposition, the prey is often already hopelessly stuck, pinned by its own contorted body against a stone. The eel can then re-grip at its own leisure. What looks like a simple, harmless hole from the sunlit water above is, in reality, a complex, inescapable internal trap. Moray eels are not fast swimmers. If forced into the open blue, they are awkward, undulating slowly. Their bodies are completely unsuited for the high-speed, sustained pursuits of pelagic hunters, but they do not need to be fast. Their muscle fibers are densely packed and engineered for sustained, pulling force rather than explosive sprints. Anchored against the rough walls of their burrow, they can exert a terrifying amount of torque and pulling power. This is why backing into a moray's hole is so incredibly dangerous, not just for small reef fish, but for larger intruders, including unaware human divers. The violence never stays outside the reef. It is immediately drawn inward, deep into a space where the moray holds every conceivable tactical advantage, and the intruder holds absolutely none. This mastery of the reef's interior sometimes leads to one of the most fascinating and unlikely alliances in the ocean. In certain reef systems, moray eels have been observed hunting cooperatively with completely different species, most notably the coral grouper. This interaction is a masterpiece of uncommunicated efficiency. The grouper is a large, powerful predator of the open water and the reef boundary. It patrols the exterior, spotting small fish and chasing them relentlessly. To escape the massive jaws of the grouper, the terrified fish do exactly what their instincts demand. They dart frantically into the dark holes and tight crevices of the reef structure. These are precisely the spaces the moray eel occupies. Alerted by the frantic vibrations and the pressure waves of the fleeing fish, the moray intercepts the prey deep inside the tunnel. If the fish attempts to turn back toward the exit to escape the eel, the grouper is waiting outside. Both predators benefit immensely from this arrangement, and neither needs to share a complex language to execute it. The geometry of the reef and the shared opportunity of the hunt are more than enough. The grouper owns the open water. The moray owns a stone. Between them, they leave the prey with zero survivable dimensions. Ecologically, moray eels serve as the undisputed gatekeepers of the reef's dark interior. They exert massive predatory pressure on the species that rely on holes and crevices for shelter. By doing so, they prevent any single species of fish or invertebrate from monopolizing the reef's internal architecture. They ensure that shelter remains a dynamic, shifting resource rather than a permanently occupied fortress. But their greatest ecological impact might be the fear they generate. The mere presence of a moray eel shapes the behavior of the entire reef community. Fish learn through generations of selective pressure to treat certain shadows, certain holes, and certain textures of rock with extreme caution. They alter their daily movement patterns, their grazing routes, and their resting habits. Even on days when a moray does not strike, its unseen presence completely reorganizes the flow of traffic along the reef face. The morays themselves are perfectly shaped by the demands of this confined existence. They lack the heavy, rigid scales seen on most other fish. Scales would create unnecessary friction against the jagged coral, slowing them down and causing constant physical damage. Instead, their skin is smooth, leathery, and coated in a thick, protective layer of mucus. This mucus layer acts as a biological lubricant, allowing the eel to slide effortlessly backward and forward through tight, abrasive spaces without suffering a single scratch. It also provides a vital barrier against parasites and infections, an essential adaptation for an animal that spends its entire life pressed tightly against the dirt and bacteria of the rock. Despite their fearsome, almost demonic reputation, moray eels are not reckless, indiscriminate killers. They are deeply cautious, highly calculating, and profoundly tied to their chosen geography. Many individuals will remain in the exact same hole for months, sometimes years. During this time, they do not just live in the tunnel, they memorize it. They learn the specific flow patterns of the microcurrents sweeping past their door. They learn the daily schedules of the prey traffic outside. They learn every single structural nuance of the rock surrounding them. This intimate familiarity drastically increases their hunting success. When a moray strikes from its lifelong burrow, it knows exactly how far it can lunge without losing its anchor. It knows exactly where the tunnel pinches, just a few inches back. It knows exactly how much force is required to pull a struggling fish past the critical point of no return. It is never improvising. It is executing a flawless mechanical plan that is refined over a lifetime of waiting. To witness a moray eel hunt is to see the concept of predation stripped of all its cinematic spectacle and reduced to pure, brutal mechanics. There is no thrilling chase sequence. There is no dramatic, high-speed collision in the sunlit water. There is no prolonged, desperate struggle in the open blue. There is only a sudden clamp, a firm, unbreakable grip, and then a dark, terrifying disappearance. The reef simply closes behind the prey as if swallowing a whole. From the outside, looking at the empty doorway, it looks almost anticlimactic. The water settles. The coral remains perfectly still. But from inside the tunnel, the reality is absolute. Understanding the moray eel means understanding a terrifying truth about the ocean. Danger is highly directional. The most lethal space is not always the open water in front of you. Sometimes, the most lethal space is the dark, silent hole directly behind you. When a moray eel shifts into reverse, dragging its prey backward with two sets of jaws locked firmly in place, it transforms a simple shelter into a one-way system of execution. The light is instantly replaced by darkness. The space collapses into stone. The fight ends not with a fatal blow, but with a total, systematic removal from the world. In the complex architecture of the coral reef, holes are never truly empty. They are occupied, fiercely claimed, and perfectly defended by animals that have mastered the art of confinement. The moray eel is the undisputed king of this claustrophobic world. It is a predator that does not ever need to chase, simply because it already owns all the exits. Head-first lunge, clamp, backward drag, silence. In a vibrant world defined by endless movement and complexity, the moray succeeds by reducing every single encounter to a narrow, inescapable line in the dark. From above, the shallow coastal seafloor looks like an endless, barren desert. It is a sprawling expanse of pale sand stretching outward in gentle, rhythmic ripples, interrupted only by the occasional patch of struggling seagrass or a solitary, bleached coral head. To the human eye, and indeed to the eyes of most apex predators that patrol the open blue, this is dead space. It is a vast, empty stage devoid of actors. It is a place where prey does not reveal itself, but instead dissolves into background. But this emptiness is a lie. The sandy flat is teeming with life, but it is life that has chosen a very specific evolutionary gamble. The gamble of absolute concealment. Down here, survival means burial. It means stopping your heart rate, stilling your gills, covering yourself in sediment, and praying that whatever swims overhead relies on its eyes to find a meal. Against almost any other predator in the ocean, this strategy is flawless. But against a hammerhead shark, the sand is not a shield. To the hammerhead, the sand is perfectly, entirely translucent. This animal does not hunt what it can see. It hunts what the ocean is trying to hide. It stalks the invisible. And in doing so, it turns the ultimate defense mechanism of the seafloor into a lethal, inescapable trap. The defining physical feature of the hammerhead shark is often completely misunderstood. Pop culture and casual observers tend to reduce its bizarre, laterally expanded head, the cephalofoil, to a mere curiosity, an evolutionary mistake, or a strange aesthetic gimmick. In reality, that flattened, hammer-like shape is one of the most sophisticated, highly tuned precision instruments on the planet. It is not an accident. It is an acoustic and electrical satellite dish. By stretching its head laterally, evolution allowed the hammerhead to space its sensory organs far wider apart than any other shark in existence. This creates an exceptionally broad, high-resolution detection field. Running along the entire underside of this massive, sweeping head are hundreds of tiny, dark pores known as the ampullae of Lorenzini. These are highly specialized electroreceptors, microscopic sensory vaults tuned to detect the faintest, most microscopic electrical signals imaginable. Every single living organism in the ocean leaks electricity. It is the unavoidable byproduct of biology. The firing of a neuron, the twitch of muscle, the slow, rhythmic beating of a heart, the faint opening and closing of gills pulling oxygen from the water. All of these actions generate minute electrical fields that bleed outward into surrounding water. A stingray buried perfectly beneath a thin layer of sand may be completely camouflaged visually. It may not make a single sound. It may not cast a shadow, but it cannot turn off its nervous system. It cannot stop its heart. The electrical hum of its existence radiates upward through the sediment. To the hammerhead shark, this faint, invisible hum is not background noise. It is a set of glowing coordinates. Because of this sensory superpower, the hammerhead's hunting strategy looks entirely different from the explosive, high-speed pursuits of pelagic hunters like the great white or the mako. The hammerhead does not rush. It scans. It moves across the sandy flats in deliberate, sweeping arcs. Its body banks smoothly, gracefully, rolling slightly from side to side as its wide head traces massive, overlapping paths just inches above the seafloor. It behaves exactly like a biological metal detector sweeping across a beach. From this unique vantage point, buried prey is illuminated in a way that completely defies human intuition. The shark is reading the electrical ledger of the seafloor. When it passes over a concealed stingray, the shark's lateral sensors instantly pick up the voltage spike. The hunt immediately shifts from a broad search to localized mechanical containment. Stingrays are not passive, helpless prey. They're incredibly powerful, heavily muscled swimmers with flexible, dynamic bodies and strong, whip-like tails armed with serrated, venomous barb. If given a fraction of a second in an inch of space, A ray can explode from the sand and accelerate to safety. But the hammerhead understands the deadly geometry of this encounter before the ray even realizes it has been discovered, rather than rushing in directly for a chaotic, thrashing bite, which would risk a lethal strike from the ray's tail. The hammerhead uses its bizarre anatomy to deny all escape routes simultaneously. The shark suddenly lowers its body, angling the massive, flat surface of its cephalofoil downward, and literally presses into the sand directly on top of the hidden ray. It uses its own mass, combined with the extreme leverage of its head, to pin the prey flat against the ocean floor. This is not brute force deployed randomly. It is calculated mechanical control. The shark is turning the seabed itself into a lid. The very head shape that served as the ultimate detection tool now instantly transforms into an instrument of absolute restraint. By spreading its heavy body weight across the wide, flat surface of its hammer, the shark can apply overwhelming downward pressure without ever needing to expose its jaws to the ray's weapon. The stingray's immediate panic instinct is to flatten itself even further into the sediment or to attempt a violent, sideways burst of speed to slip out from under the pressure. Sudden plumes of pale sand erupt into the water column as the ray thrashes frantically beneath the shark's head. But the very environment that the ray chose for protection now actively works against it. The loose sediment collapses back into place, robbing the ray of any solid traction. It cannot push off. It cannot gain momentum. The environment shifts sides in an instant. What was once the perfect hiding place has become an unyielding, suffocating confinement. Only after the prey is entirely pinned, only after the thrashing is controlled and the dangerous tail is immobilized beneath the weight of the shark, does the hammerhead finally bring its jaws into play. The kill is a grounded, methodical process rather than a frenzy of tearing flesh. The shark twists its head just enough to angle its mouth, often targeting the vital leading edges of the ray's wings or the head, neutralizing the animal's ability to generate thrust. This sequence is absolutely critical to the shark's survival. A premature bite risks letting the ray slip away, or worse, allows the ray to drive its venomous barb into the shark's eyes or gills. By pinning first and biting second, the hammerhead minimizes its own danger to zero while maximizing its lethal efficiency. This extreme, hyper-focused specialization explains exactly why hammerhead sharks are so inextricably linked to sandy habitats, shallow coastal shelves, and vast continental plains. These environments are absolute gold mines of prey that rely exclusively on burial as their primary defense mechanism. Stingrays, skates, flatfish, and countless other bottom dwellers survive by blending seamlessly into the substrate, gambling their lives on the assumption that visual predators will simply pass right over them. Against a hammerhead, that evolutionary gamble is a guaranteed failure. The shark's sensory system reaches right through the physical barrier of the sand, making visual concealment completely irrelevant. In the grand evolutionary theater, the hammerhead occupies a niche defined not by raw speed, not by sheer size, but by total informational dominance. This advantage is magnified to terrifying levels when you factor in group behavior. While hammerhead are often observed hunting as solitary phantoms, certain species form massive, coordinated aggregations, particularly during seasonal migrations or at specific, nutrient-rich coastal sites. In a hunting context, these groups fundamentally alter the landscape. They create overlapping search patterns that systematically delete escape options for anything buried below. When dozens of hammerheads sweep across a sandy flat together, their intersecting electrical detection fields form a massive, invisible grid. They are not necessarily hunting cooperatively in a conscious, communicative sense. They are not sharing prey or whispering tactics to one another, but their synchronized movement patterns and shared habitat utilization produce a terrifying emergent effect. The entire seafloor is placed under constant, unyielding surveillance. If a buried ray detects a shark approaching from the left and attempts to flee to the right, it almost immediately swims directly into the scanning path of a second or third shark. Individual hunts bleed into collective, inescapable pressure. For the prey, the effect is identical to facing a highly coordinated, tightening net. Visually, from a drone or a high vantage point, this hunting style is unmistakable. The sweeping, rhythmic turns of the hammerheads leave faint, interlocking trails in the disturbed sediment below. Plumes of sand bloom like underwater explosions and then quickly dissipate as hidden rays attempt futile, last-second escapes. The The shark's bodies cut smooth, graceful arcs through the shallow water, heads angled slightly downward, locked in a state of continuous, active scanning. There is no sudden, dramatic acceleration. There is no explosive, chaotic sprint to the water column. The terror of the hammerhead comes entirely from its inevitability. Once the electrical signal is detected, the outcome unfolds through absolute physical control, not through the chaos of pursuit. This total sensory superiority, however, comes with a strict biological trade-off. The wide, flattened head that grants the hammerhead its electrical omniscience also dramatically increases its drag in the water. Its hydrodynamics are fundamentally altered. A hammerhead is not built to chase down a fleeing tuna in the open, pelagic ocean. It cannot sustain the high-speed, long-distance pursuits of a great white. But the terrifying truth is, it simply does not need to. Its chosen prey does not flee over long distances. The hunt ends exactly where it begins, in the sand. Ecologically, the hammerhead shark functions as a vital, stabilizing regulator of the ocean floor. Benthic species like stingrays exert a massive influence on the seafloor community. Rays constantly churn the sediment, aggressively feeding on buried invertebrates, crustaceans, and mollusks. Left unchecked, a booming ray population could easily overexploit the seafloor, devastating the intricate microhabitats of countless smaller organisms and throwing the entire ecosystem out of balance. By applying constant, heavy predatory pressure on these rays, the hammerhead maintains the equilibrium of the coast. This cascading effect is a perfect illustration of how a single, bizarre sensory adaptation in an apex predator can ripple outward, shaping the lives of millions of unseen creatures in sand. To support this highly active, sensory-rich lifestyle, thermoregulation plays a critical role. Shallow coastal waters and sandy flats absorb sunlight, providing the warmer temperatures necessary to sustain the hammerhead's active metabolism during intense hunting periods. These sharks are highly mobile, undertaking massive migrations between varying depths in coastal regions, following the seasonal availability of prey and the shifting bands of optimal water temperature. They are the great connectors of the ocean, linking the shallow coastal flats with the deeper offshore drop-offs, serving as mobile regulators of the marine world rather than a static, localized threat. To truly understand a hammerhead shark, you must completely reframe your definition of a trap. A trap is usually thought of as a physical structure. It is a cage, a corner, a narrowing tunnel, or a camouflage pit. The hammerhead does not build structures. It does not corner its prey against a coral wall. It does not rely on the element of visual ambush. Instead, it takes the prey's own environment and turns its assumptions inside out. Sand is supposed to hide you. Stillness is supposed to protect you. Distance and silence are supposed to offer warning. But against a hammerhead shark, every single one of these rules is completely nullified. The sand becomes a window. Absolute stillness broadcasts your exact location in glowing electrical detail. The proximity of the predator arrives without a single visual cue or pressure wave. Seen in this light, the hammerhead is not an evolutionary freak or a creature of chaos. It is a creature of absolute ruthless order. Its wide, bizarre head is not a mistake. It is the ultimate blueprint for reading an invisible landscape. Its hunting behavior is not violence for the sake of violence. It is a clinical demonstration of how sensory superiority completely rewrites reality. The shark does not terrorize the seafloor. It maps it. As the violent plumes of sand finally begin to settle, and the shallow water returns to its deceptive, quiet calm, the hammerhead simply glides onward. It sweeps its massive head rhythmically from side to side, constantly reading a flow of electrical signals that no other predator on Earth can fully interpret. Beneath its shadow, the seafloor is no longer a vast hiding place. It is a detailed, illuminated ledger of biological traces. Each faint electrical pulse is a potential meal, and each successful strike is absolute proof that in the shallow ocean, the most effective, inescapable traps are not built from jagged coral, dark tunnels, or razor-sharp teeth. They are built entirely from perception itself. The deep, cold seafloor is a place of absolute sensory deprivation. As you descend away from the sunlit surface, the ocean sheds its vibrant blues and greens. Light thins into a weak, grainy twilight, and finally, into an oppressive, heavy black. Down here, The water is utterly silent, bitterly cold, and thick with suspended sediment. The seafloor itself is not a sprawling, open plain where chases can unfold. It is a dim, claustrophobic compression chamber of shadow and mud. In this world, distance is a lie. Visibility is an illusion. Survival is not dictated by how fast you can swim over a long stretch of water, but by what happens in the final, invisible centimeters of an encounter. This is the domain of the monkfish. But to understand a monkfish, you must first abandon your entire understanding of what a predator is supposed to be. Our minds are conditioned to view predators as active forces. We imagine a shape emerging from the gloom, a silhouette accelerating, a deliberate approach that signals danger in time for prey to panic and run. The monkfish completely rejects this model. It does not advance. It does not approach. It does not pursue. The monkfish is not a hunter that moves through the environment. It is an environment that simply waits. It reveals itself only at the exact fraction of a second when it is already far too late. If you were to look directly at a monkfish resting on the bottom, your brain would likely refuse to register it as a living creature. At rest, it barely resembles an animal at all. Its body is grotesquely flattened, pressed hard against the seafloor, as if crushed by the weight of the water above. Its skin is devoid of the sleek, hydrodynamic smoothness we associate with marine life. Instead, it is textured like rotting debris, mud, and dead sand. Its coloration is a chaotic mottled tapestry of dull browns, dead grays, and muted greens, shifting perfectly to mirror whatever dead substrate happens to be sitting on. But true invisibility requires more than just matching colors. The outline of a predator is often what gives it away. The monkfish solves this by dissolving its own edges. Ringing its lower jaw and the sides of its flattened body are intricate, irregular flaps of skin that look exactly like fronds of drifting seaweed or clumps of disturbed mud. These flaps break up the hard lines of its silhouette, blending the animal seamlessly into the chaotic visual noise of the ocean floor. In the weak, fading light of the abyss, where contrast is minimal and vision is grainy, the monkfish is not just camouflaged, it is biologically erased. The prey's brain does not process a threat because it literally cannot extract a shape from the background. What defines the terror of the monkfish is not what you see. It is entirely about what you miss. Beneath this absolute invisibility lies an anatomy that feels almost prehistoric in its singular, brutal purpose. The head of the monkfish is gargantuan, occupying the vast majority of the animal's total length. And dominating that massive head is a mouth of absurd, nightmarish proportions. The jaws, stretched wider than the rest of the body, seems capable of physically supporting. They are lined with rows of needle-sharp, inward-pointing teeth. But these teeth are not designed to slice through flesh or tear chunks from a struggling victim. They are not weapons of dismemberment. They are the bars of a cage. Functionally, the monkfish is nothing more than a giant mouth with a rudimentary body attached to it as an afterthought. It is a biological trapdoor engineered around one ruthless principle. Anything that crosses the threshold of those jaws does not ever come back out. But a trap is useless if nothing walks into it. In the vast, sparse desert of the deep seafloor, sitting and waiting for a fish to accidentally blunder into your mouth is a statistical impossibility. The monkfish solves this with a masterpiece of sinister deception. Extending from the very top of its head, just above that massive, invisible mouth, is a highly modified dorsal spine. This spine functions as a flexible fishing rod, and at its tips is the fleshy, lobed appendage known as the esca. In the dim, murky water, this lure begins to move. The monkfish flicks it with agonizing subtlety. It waves, pulses, and twitches just enough to mimic the erratic, struggling movements of a tiny, injured fish or a drifting crustacean. It is the only thing moving in an otherwise dead landscape. To a small fish navigating this low-visibility wasteland, calories are incredibly scarce. Hunger is a constant, driving pressure. When that fish spots the gentle pulsing of the lure, it does not see danger. It sees a miracle. It sees a rare, easy meal drifting free of cover. The monkfish never exaggerates the movement of the lure. Too much thrashing would look unnatural. It would attract suspicion. It simply twitches the bait, sending out tiny, localized pressure waves that the prey can detect with its lateral line. This deception works with devastating perfection because it entirely exploits the sensory limitations of the deep ocean. In the dark, prey animals rely on short-range visual cues and faint water vibrations to survive. The pulsing lure provides exactly that, while completely masking the presence of the monster lying just inches behind it. Because the monkfish remains absolutely still, it generates no pressure wave of its own. There is no large mass displacing water, no shadow expanding the darkness, no sudden change in current. There is absolutely nothing to announce that a predator is there. Stillness is the ultimate camouflage, and the monkfish is the absolute master of it. As the hungry, unsuspecting prey approaches the lure, the geometry of the encounter tightens with terrifying silence. The distance shrinks from a few meters down to a few body lengths, and finally, down to a few mere centimeters. At this microscopic range, the rules of biology dictate that reaction time is the only thing keeping an animal alive. The escape reflexes of fish are incredibly fast, wired directly into their nervous systems to fight the moment they detect a sudden change in pressure or the looming visual cue of a strike. But the monkfish bypasses this entire defensive system. It does not rush forward. It does not swing its heavy head to snap at the prey. It simply opens. The opening of a monkfish's mouth is not a bite. It is a catastrophic localized vacuum event. The massive jaws drop open with explosive mechanical speed. In a fraction of a millisecond, the volume inside the cavernous mouth increases dramatically. Physics demands that the sudden void be filled, and water violently rushes in to equalize the massive pressure drop. This happens faster than the electrical impulses in the prey's nervous system can travel from its eyes to its brain. There is absolutely no time for a coordinated escape response. There is no time to flick a tail, to turn, to accelerate, or to panic. The suction force generated by the monkfish is so overwhelmingly powerful that it completely negates any swimming effort. Even the most agile, heavily muscled fish in the ocean is instantly rendered helpless at this range. One moment, the prey is hovering perfectly still, inspecting a tiny, twitching morsel of food. The next moment, it has been deleted from the water column. It is gone. The inward-facing teeth slam shut, interlocking perfectly, ensuring that anything pulled inside the cavernous stomach cannot be expelled, no matter how hard it thrashes in the dark. The trap door seals. The monkfish settles its body back into the mud, shifting slightly to reestablish its perfect camouflage. Digestion begins quietly, buried beneath the sediment, as if nothing in the world had just occurred. The terrifying efficiency of this mechanism lies in its utter simplicity. The monkfish does not need to aim carefully. It does not need to grab or wrestle. It lets the fundamental laws of fluid dynamics do all the killing. By completely eliminating the approach phase of a hunt, it removes the only window of time in which the prey might have recognized its impending death. The lure did not trigger fear because it looked like food. The predator did not trigger fear because it looked like dirt. The fear, if it is felt at all, arrives only in the pitch-black confines of the stomach, long after the physics of the vacuum have already resolved the encounter. This incredibly grim hunting strategy is perfectly married to the harsh economics of the deep sea. In these frigid environments, metabolism slows to a crawl. Energy is the most precious commodity in existence. Chasing a fast-moving fish through the dark over long distances would be a massive, reckless expenditure of calories with very low probability of success. The monkfish solved this metabolic equation by reducing its own movement to absolute zero. It invests all of its energy into a single devastating, instantaneous action rather than wasting on prolonged pursuit. Waiting in the mud costs almost nothing. The explosive vacuum strike costs a massive burst of energy, but the monkfish only spend that currency when the prey is literally inches from its mouth, making success an absolute mathematical certainty. This makes the monkfish one of the most energy-efficient predators on the planet, perfectly honed by evolution to thrive in an environment that starves the careless. Every single detail of its anatomy supports this lethargic, highly lethal lifestyle. Its body is compact and heavy, muscular enough to anchor it firmly against deep-sea currents, but completely unsuited for sustained swimming. Its fins are positioned more like stabilizers or crude feet, designed to hold the animal steady on the mud rather than propel it through the water. Even its coloration slowly adapts over time, actively matching the local rocks and sand to maintain its total invisibility. The monkfish does not just live on the seafloor. It behaves like a geological feature of the seafloor itself. Ecologically, the monkfish serves as a silent, brutal regulator of the deep. It targets the fish, crabs, and invertebrates that scavenge along the bottom, creatures that might otherwise overpopulate and strip the benthos of its limited resources. By systematically removing the individuals that make poor decisions, the ones that take risks for a free meal, the monkfish exerts a massive evolutionary pressure on the entire community. It forces the deep-sea ecosystem to be cautious, altering how energy flows through the darkness. There is a profound, chilling irony in the physical form of the monkfish. Its face, wide, flattened, and bristling with teeth, does not possess the sleek, aerodynamic beauty of a shark or the elegant majesty of a killer whale. It looks awkward. It looks genuinely grotesque, as if it were assembled in the dark without any concern for aesthetics. Yet, this horrifying form is the absolute zenith of extreme specialization. Every single exaggerated feature serves a lethal purpose. The comically oversized mouth maximizes the vacuum volume. The bizarre, fleshy lure extends the effective reach of the trap. The squashed, flattened body reduces its profile and anchors it against the crushing weight of the deep. Its horror emerges not from malice, but from pure, unadulterated optimization. The visual rhythm of a monkfish hunt is deceptively, terrifyingly simple. It is a slow, almost hypnotic waving of a fleshy lure, then absolute stillness, a stillness that stretches into minutes, hours, sometimes entire days, and then an instantaneous vanish. There is no struggle. There is no dramatic chase sequence. The prey disappears as if the seafloor itself simply opened up and swallowed it. For anyone attempting to understand this animal, the violence feels completely out of proportion to the motion involved. That imbalance is exactly what makes the monkfish so deeply unsettling. It never announces itself. It simply edits its prey out of existence. To comprehend the monkfish is to accept a very dark truth about the natural world. Some of the most lethal forces on Earth do not need to be active to be deadly. In environments where the light fails, where the water is thick and cold, and where space is compressed to span a few inches, the most dangerous animal is often the one that looks like absolutely nothing at all. The monkfish is the absolute embodiment of this principle. It does not dominate through speed or aggression or intimidation. It wins by turning infinite patience into an inevitable conclusion, and by weaponizing the very physics of the water around it. Down in the crushing dark, where a single mistake cannot be undone, the monkfish simply waits. The lure twitches. Curiosity closes the gap. The mouth opens, and the ocean resets to perfect, silent stillness, exactly as if nothing had ever happened. The ocean does not end at the shimmering, sunlit surface, nor does it conclude at the shallow, vibrant borders of the continental shelf. It opens downward. It plunges into a terrifying, vertical world where the concept of space completely shifts axis. Down here, the ocean is not a sprawling horizontal landscape. It is a falling corridor. It is a bottomless, black shaft that leads relentlessly away from warmth, away from oxygen, and away from the comfort of sight. In this abyss, the sheer weight of the water above becomes a primary obstacle to biological survival. Most predators skim the roof of this world, terrified of the drop. But the sperm whale does not just cross this vertical void. It descends directly into the heart of it. And by doing so, it takes the crushing depths of the ocean and weaponizes them, turning gravity and pressure into the ultimate inescapable trap. To watch a sperm whale at the surface is to look at an animal preparing for a journey into an alien dimension. From above, its silhouette is monolithic. The front third of its massive body is dominated by a blunt, squared-off head that looks less like a biological feature and more like a submerged anvil, a brutal battering ram designed to push through the heavy fluid of the sea. At the surface, it does not display the frantic energy of a hunting shark or the playful agility of a dolphin. It rests, it moves conservatively. It breathes with deep, rhythmic, heavy exhalations, saturating its bloodstream with oxygen, mathematically calculating the metabolic cost of what it is about to do. Then, the massive fluke lifts high into the air, water cascading from its trailing edge. The body angles sharply downward, and the whale slips beneath the waves. It begins a descent that will take it thousands of feet beyond the absolute limit of light. As the whale drops, the familiar ocean is systematically stripped away. With every passing meter, the sensory cues that most animals rely on simply vanish. The vibrant reds and yellows fade first, bleeding out into a monochromatic blue. Then the contrast dies. Finally, the blue succumbs to an oppressive, suffocating blackness. For almost any other creature on Earth, this sensory deletion would trigger blinding panic. To be blind in a three-dimensional void is to be utterly defenseless. But for the sperm whale, this descent is a return to its true territory. The deep ocean is far from empty. It is heavily populated with bizarre, highly adapted life forms. But life down here is structured vertically, stacked in highly specific, pressurized layers. In the open water of the shallows, a prey animal can flee to the left, to the right, or hide behind a reef. In the abyss, lateral escape is utterly meaningless. You can only go up or you can go down. And both of those directions come with catastrophic physiological consequences. Pressure climbs exponentially. Temperatures plummet to near freezing. Oxygen levels fluctuate wildly. The animals that live in this blackness are finely, delicately tuned to their specific depth layer. If they are pushed too far out of that zone, too fast, their own bodies will betray them. The sperm whale understands this lethal vertical architecture better than anything else alive. Its primary targets are the legendary phantoms of the deep, giant, and colossal squid. These are supreme masters of the dark. They haunt the depths where sunlight has absolutely no influence, navigating through a heightened sensitivity to water vibration and the faint, ghostly glows of bioluminescence. Their bodies are soft, heavily muscled, and perfectly engineered to move with explosive grace under millions of pounds of hydrostatic pressure. Their massive arms are lined with thousands of suction cups, and in some species, those cups are rimmed with razor-sharp, hardened hooks capable of sinking into flesh with a terrifying mechanical grip. We do not have to guess what happens when these two titans collide in the dark. The evidence of their wars is carved directly into the flesh of the whale. Massive, overlapping circular scars, sometimes arranged in frantic, raking patterns across the whale's blunt head and flanks, mark the exact locations where the squid fought back, attaching themselves in a desperate, violent bid for survival. These battle scars tell a very specific story. They are not the markings of a quick ambush. They are the undeniable proof of prolonged, grueling endurance. A sperm whale does not rush a giant squid in a sudden, explosive sprint. It descends with deliberate, chilling composure. It uses its massive hyperoxygenated blood reserves to remain active and submerged for over an hour. As it falls deeper into pressure cooker the abyss, its body undergoes a radical, calculated transformation. Its lungs physically collapse, a deliberate evolutionary failsafe that prevents the deadly absorption of nitrogen that would otherwise kill a mammal at this depth. Blood flow is ruthlessly restricted, redirected away from the extremities and funneled exclusively to the brain and essential organs. Its heart rate slows to a crawl. Every single ounce of energy is heavily rationed. This absolute physiological mastery allows a whale to remain perfectly calm, functional, and lethal in an environment that would instantly crush or suffocate almost anything else on the planet. But in total darkness, how does a predator find a ghost? The answer lies in the whale's massive head. It is not just a battering ram. It is the most powerful biological sonar generator ever to evolve. In the pitch black, the sperm whale does not hunt with its eyes. It hunts with sound. It uses echolocation, projecting powerful, rhythmic clicks that travel through the heavy water like invisible searchlights. These clicks are generated deep within the whale's skull and focus through the massive spermaceti organ, a giant barrel of specialized oil in its head that acts as an acoustic lens. The sound pulses strike objects in the dark and bounce back, providing the whale's brain with a highly detailed, three-dimensional topological map of the abyss. It can read the shape, the size, the speed, and the exact trajectory of anything moving in the void. To the sperm whale, the deep ocean is never dark. It is brilliantly, continuously illuminated by sound. As the whale drops through the water column, it scans the void ahead with broad, sweeping acoustic pulses. When the sonar strikes the soft, massive body of a deep-sea squid, the rhythm of the hunt instantly shifts. The whale transitions from a broad search pattern into a focused, aggressive tracking lock. The clicks accelerate into a rapid, terrifying buzz. The squid, exquisitely sensitive to vibrations, feels the physical impact of these sound waves hitting its body. It knows it has been found long before any physical contact is made, and so the pursuit begins. But this is where the vertical trap truly snaps shut. The squid attempts to flee, but its options are fundamentally broken by the physics of the water column. If the squid dives deeper to escape, it plunges into even colder water and exponentially higher pressure, rapidly pushing its soft body toward catastrophic physiological failure. If the squid attempts to flee upward, toward the surface, a completely different nightmare begins. As it ascends, the rapid decrease in pressure aggressively alters its buoyancy. The gas-filled structures within its tissue expand. Its muscle efficiency severely degrades. Its coordination fails. The squid is trapped not by teeth or by coral walls, but by the crushing reality of depth. The sperm whale, massively over-engineered to handle these extreme pressure transitions effortlessly, simply maintains the pursuit. It stays on the target's tail, while the squid's own biology slowly tears itself apart, trying to adapt to the changing depth. Unlike the explosive, millisecond strikes of coastal predators, the sperm whale engages in drawn-out, exhausting, gladiatorial combat. When the distance finally closes, the squid fights back with everything it has. It wraps its massive hooked tentacles around the whale's head, fighting to blind it, fighting to hold on, applying tremendous pulling force. The whale's immensely thick skin and heavy layers of blubber absorb the brunt of the damage, but the struggle is absolute. This is a war measured in minutes, unfolding in a freezing, crushing void where neither animal can see the other. The battle is dictated entirely by sound, pressure, and tactile violence. Here, the whale's blunt, bizarre head serves its final purpose. It provides a massive, solid platform. When the squid attaches itself, the whale can twist, barrel roll, and apply immense physical force to dislodge the prey without ever exposing its vital organs to the squid's beak. The head is a sensor, a lens, and a shield all at once. Eventually, the inescapable reality of the trap takes its toll. The sheer endurance of the whale outlasts the frantic energy of the squid. The invertebrate's muscles burn out. Its grip falters. The hooks slip. As the squid weakens, the whale maneuvers its narrow, tooth-lined lower jaw, creating a powerful suction that draws the massive prey inward. There is no dramatic, bloody tearing of flesh. The victory is silent, heavy, and almost anticlimactic after prolonged, desperate tension of the chase in the dark. With the prey secured, the whale begins its long, slow ascent. It carries the massive carcass upward through layers of water that gradually become lighter, warmer, and less oppressive. This grueling, vertical hunting strategy defines every aspect of the sperm whale's existence. Their global migration patterns do not follow the warm surface currents or the seasonal blooms of shallow water fish. They trace the unseen deep water trenches and abyssal plains where giant squid populations are the densest. They travel across entire oceans, moving from one black, pressurized hunting ground to the next. While the dives themselves are intensely solitary, plunged into darkness alone, the surface life of the sperm whale is characterized by incredibly complex, tight-knit social structures. When they return to the light, they communicate, they socialize. This allows vital knowledge about deep-sea topography and prey locations to be shared and passed down through generations. The pods map the abyss collectively, even if they hunt it individually. Ecologically, the sperm whale is the great vertical bridge of the ocean. By diving into the unreachable depths to consume massive amounts of squid, and then return to the surface to breathe and defecate, they physically transport millions of tons of nutrients from the dead bottom of the world up into the sunlit zone. This massive biological pump fertilizes the upper layers of the ocean, triggering phytoplankton blooms that sustain the entire marine food web. The energy of the abyss is literally dragged to the surface by the sheer will and endurance of the whale. The true terror and majesty of the sperm whale lie in its scale. There is no human audience in the abyss. There is no sunlight to frame the violence of the encounter. What happens down there can only be imagined through the scars left behind and the acoustic echoes recorded by hydrophones. It is a predator that wins not through a sudden ambush or a burst of blinding speed, but through unrelenting patience, absolute sensory dominance, and an unparalleled mastery of its own physiology. To understand a sperm whale is to realize that the most inescapable traps are not always horizontal. Sometimes the trap is vertical. Sometimes escape fails not because there's a physical wall blocking the way, but because every single direction available demands a biological price that the prey simply cannot pay. In the lightless depths of the ocean, depth itself is the ultimate weapon, and the sperm whale is its undisputed master. When a massive creature finally breaks the surface tension of the ocean, forcefully exhaling a towering, explosive plume of vapor into the open air, there is no visual evidence of titanic war that just concluded kilometers below. The surface water settles, calm and opaque, but the white, circular scars etched deeply into the dark skin of the whale remain. They are the silent, brutal proof that in the most hostile, lightless corners of our planet, survival is dictated by the ability to endure the crushing weight of the world, and the power to turn the very architecture of the ocean against anything that tries to hide within it. To the casual observer, a coral reef from a distance appears as a sprawling, open metropolis. It is a vibrant mosaic of color and constant, fluid motion, surrounded by the infinite blue of the open sea. It projects an illusion of endless space and infinite escape routes. But as you descend, as you drop closer to calcium carbonate substrate in the jagged foundations of the reef, that wide-open illusion violently collapses. What appeared to be a spacious sanctuary from above reveals itself to be a deeply claustrophobic maze. It is a fractured architecture of dead ends, razor-sharp corridors, and tightening fissures carved by millennia of relentless erosion and reinforced by the slow, grinding growth of new coral. This is the exclusive operational theater of the sea snake. It does not exist in the wide blue. It does not engage in dramatic, high-speed open water chases. It operates entirely in the margins. It lives in the crack, the seam, the suffocatingly narrow passage where a fleeing prey animal simply runs out of physical options long before it runs out of panic. To comprehend the lethality of the sea snake, you have to realize that in these confined spaces, raw speed is a completely useless currency. Fish that have evolved to thrive in the open water, creatures defined by their explosive acceleration and rapid directional changes, suddenly find themselves in a geometrical nightmare. A corridor that narrows faster than a fish can physically turn is no longer just a hiding place. It is a biological certainty, and the sea snake navigates this certainty unlike any other predator in the ocean. A sea snake moves through the shattered environment like a living contour line. It does not swim through the reef. It threads itself through the stone. Its body forms deliberate, heavily muscled S-shaped curves. These curves are not the side-to-side undulations of a fish trying to push water backward. They are mechanical anchors. The snake presses the outside of these bends hard against the unyielding rock and abrasive coral. This allows the animal to completely stabilize itself, locking its lower body in place against the unpredictable surges of the current, while the front half of its body, the head and neck, remains entirely free to advance independently. Unlike pelagic predators that rely on building massive forward momentum, the sea snake relies on compression. Every single bend in its body stores positional control. In the tightest corridors of the reef, this specialized locomotion is far more devastating than speed. The hunt begins in almost total silence, and it is practically invisible. The snake's head inches forward in short, hyper-deliberate increments. As it moves, its forked tongue flicks continuously out into the water column. This is not the visual scanning of a shark or the electrical sweeping of a hammerhead. This is chemical interrogation. The tongue samples the microscopic traces of biological matter suspended in the salt water. This incredibly sensitive olfactory system does not paint a high-definition picture of the prey, but provides something far more vital in the dark: direction, intensity, and proximity. The interior of a coral reef is a chaotic blizzard of overlapping smells. But the sea snake's brain is wired to filter this sensory noise by context. A terrified, stressed fish leaking adrenaline and panic metabolites releases a drastically different chemical signature than a fish resting calmly in the dark. In the open ocean, these faint chemical trails would be instantly washed away by the current. But inside the maze, the narrow cracks in the piled rubble act like acoustic amplifiers for scent. They trap, concentrate, and preserve the chemical trails that would otherwise dissipate. The snake does not need to see its target from a distance. It only needs to know which microscopic doorway the scent is bleeding from. When the predator and the prey finally intersect in the dark, the strike happens with terrifying efficiency. It is blistering fast, but it is never reckless. The sea snake does not lunge its entire body forward in a desperate, sprawling attack. To do so would mean breaking its carefully established anchors and risking being swept out of crevice by a sudden current. Instead, it snaps forward utilizing only the head and the neck, minimizing any chance of losing its vital leverage against the rock. The jaws clamp down onto the fish, but they do not thrash. They do not attempt to tear chunks of flesh. They do not crush. The bite is designed exclusively to establish a secure hold. There is no chaotic, prolonged wrestling match that might dislodge the snake from its precarious position in the rubble. The venom is delivered instantly through short, hollow fangs, and then the snake simply waits. This waiting is the most critical distinction in the sea snake's hunting philosophy. A sea snake does not overpower its prey through brute muscular strength. It lets advanced neurochemistry finish the violent encounter it started. The venom of a sea snake is not designed for cinematic spectacle. It is not meant to incapacitate a massive mammal over the course of hours, nor does it dissolve tissue to cause agonizing, dramatic swelling. Its sole evolutionary purpose is speed and localized efficiency. Small reef fish are incredibly flexible, highly reactive, and capable of explosive, desperate escape bursts. To successfully hunt them in a space barely wider than a human wrist, a predator must shut down the prey's central nervous system before the fish can execute a single, powerful kick of its tail that might wedge it deeper into an unreachable crack, or propel out of the tunnel entirely. Sea snake venom achieved this by aggressively interfering with neuromuscular signaling. It acts as a chemical roadblock, violently preventing the fish's muscles from receiving the electrical impulses sent by its brain. The effect is not immediate, theatrical paralysis where the fish turns to stone. Instead, it is a catastrophic, rapid loss of coordinated movement. The fish simply stops being a fluid, reactive organism. Its muscles misfire. Its fins flutter uselessly. Within seconds, it becomes a drifting, uncoordinated object, still entirely alive, but stripped completely of its biological capability to escape. This neurotoxic strategy explains precisely why sea snakes hold on to their prey rather than releasing it after the initial strike. For an open-water venomous predator, biting and releasing might be a viable tactic, allowing the venom to work while keeping a safe distance. But inside a reef corridor, releasing the prey would be a fatal hunting error. Even a stunned, uncoordinated fish can drift, and the localized microcurrents inside the reef could easily sweep the incapacitated meal down a vertical shaft or into a fracture too narrow for the snake's head to follow. By maintaining its physical grip, the snake guarantees that chemical immobilization translates directly into capture. During this agonizing countdown, the heavily muscled body of the snake remains firmly anchored against the walls of the corridor. It acts as a living, breathing seal, physically blocking the only exit route, while the venom dismantles the prey's nervous system. Once the struggling completely fades and the fish goes limp, the act of swallowing begins. It is a slow, controlled, almost robotic mechanical process in the dark. The overwhelming advantage of this hunting methodology becomes glaringly obvious when you look at the predators that the sea snake shares the reef with. Massive reef hunters, like giant groupers or heavy-bodied moray eels, require substantial physical space to operate. They rely on sudden bursts of speed, wide turning radii, or massive, gaping jaws to generate suction, all of which require room to deploy. The dense rubble fields, the collapsed coral domes, and the microscopic fissures are effectively off-limits to them. But the sea snake, with an incredibly narrow head and laterally compressed, ribbon-like body, slips into these forbidden zones with absolute ease. They turn the structural complexity of the reef, which is a barrier to everything else, into an exclusive opportunity. Where other apex predators see an impenetrable obstruction, the sea snake sees a private hunting ground, entirely devoid of competition. This intense niche specialization has fundamentally rewritten their internal physiology. A sea snake's lungs are not confined to the upper chest cavity like terrestrial reptiles. Their lung extends dramatically down almost the entire length of their elongated body. This massive organ serves a dual purpose. It acts as an intricate buoyancy control device, allowing the snake to hover perfectly weightless in the water column, and it serves as a massive internal oxygen tank. This allows the sea snake to remain submerged for extraordinary periods, while painstakingly maneuvering through complex, unforgiving terrain. Furthermore, evolution has granted many species the astonishing ability to absorb a small percentage of oxygen directly through their skin from the surrounding water. This brilliantly supplements their lung breathing and drastically reduces the need for frequent trips to the surface. In a hunting strategy built entirely around agonizing patience and millimeter precision, minimizing interruptions is a matter of life and death. Every unnecessary trip to the surface breaks the hunt, increases exposure to airborne predators like sea eagles, and resets the chemical tracking process. Even their surfacing behavior is a masterpiece of energy conservation that is frequently misunderstood by human observers. When a sea snake finally needs to breathe, it does not race to the top. It rises with slow, ghostly calm. Its head breaks the surface tension of the ocean with the absolute minimum of physical disturbance. To a diver in the water, this slow, deliberate movement is often misinterpreted as curiosity or even docility, but it is neither. It is ruthless oxygen management. A sudden, splashy, chaotic ascent would waste precious calories and instantly broadcast its location to larger sharks or birds of prey. A controlled, stealthy vertical ascent allows the snake to replenish its massive lung while remaining completely alert to environmental threats. If a sea snake passes close to a human during one of these ascents and appears completely indifferent, it is not because the animal is friendly. It is because its biological priorities in that exact moment are entirely physiological, not social. You are simply not part of the oxygen equation. Back down in the dark architecture of the reef, the visual language of the sea snake's hunt becomes a terrifyingly logical sequence once you understand the rules of the maze. The S-curves of the body are never random. Each specific bend is mathematically placed to brace against a contour of rock, creating an immovable, stable platform for the strike. The head itself moves with a disjointed, searching quality, pausing, adjusting, tasting the water, calculating. When prey is finally detected and cornered, the framing of the encounter tightens to the span of a few inches. The open corridor becomes a sealed tunnel. The exit is blocked by the unyielding rock on one side and the thick, coiled body of the snake on the other. The fish is no longer a resident of the open ocean. It is trapped inside a rapidly narrowing funnel, where every single movement pushes it inevitably closer to the fangs. This hyper-efficient method of killing also drastically reduces the physical risk to the predator. Reef fish are heavily armored with sharp dorsal spines, rigid scales, and erratic, violent escape reflexes. In a prolonged physical struggle, these defenses can easily blind or injure a predator. By delivering a highly advanced neurotoxin instantly and holding securely without wrestling, the sea snake minimizes the duration of physical contact with an actively resisting animal. In the unforgiving economy of the ocean, efficiency is not just about saving energy. It is about avoiding the tiny injuries that lead to death. A damaged jaw or a broken fang in a predator that relies on microscopic precision is a fatal handicap. Evolution has perfected a system that ends the violence decisively with the absolute minimum of wear and tear. Ecologically, sea snakes play a subtle but profoundly important role in the architecture of reef systems. By systematically targeting the small fish and invertebrates that seek shelter deep within the most inaccessible cracks and rubble, they exert a top-down pressure on populations that are entirely immune to other predators. This constant, creeping threat affects how certain fish species utilize the reef structure, which in turn alters grazing patterns on the algae and changes the microhabitat dynamics of the entire ecosystem. The mere presence of a predator that can hunt inside the walls of the reef changes how prey distribute themselves, even if actual encounters are statistically rare. Fear, in ecological terms, reshapes behavior just as effectively as death does. The great irony of the sea snake is that despite possessing one of the most potent, fast-acting neurotoxins on the planet and executing a flawlessly lethal hunting strategy, they are fundamentally non-aggressive animals. They do not patrol large territories aggressively. They do not actively seek out confrontation with creatures outside their prey profile. Their entire existence is opportunistic, mathematically precise, and built entirely around exploiting the specific moments when a small, flexible prey item enters the wrong microscopic space. Humans practically never trigger this predatory response, simply because a human does not fit the geometry of the hunt. We are not prey size, and we do not behave like a stressed fish vibrating inside a coral crevice. The vast majority of dangerous interactions between humans and sea snakes occur when the animal is forcibly trapped in a fishing net, deliberately handled, or accidentally stepped on in shallows, situations that force the animal into a desperate, defensive panic. When swimming freely in the water, a sea snake's only priorities are chemical navigation and oxygen management. Engagement with a giant, clumsy mammal is a waste of both. To truly understand a sea snake, you have to abandon the ingrained human idea that danger in the ocean always announces itself through massive size, gaping jaws, or explosive speed. The true power of this animal lies in its absolute specialization. They are the undisputed masters of the unusable space. They are the hunters that take the reef's most cluttered, claustrophobic, and chaotic zones and turn them into highly controlled, inescapable execution arenas. Their venom is not a weapon designed for terror or display. It is a highly refined chemical tool evolved to solve a very specific problem of physics: how to immediately stop a fast, flexible animal in a space that is too tight for a chase. When you watch a sea snake's tail slowly disappear into a dark fracture in the coral that looks barely wide enough to accommodate a pencil, it is incredibly easy to underestimate the violence of what happens next. Inside that pitch-black darkness, dramatic chases do not exist. Instead, geometry replaces drama. The angles matter. The physical contact matters. The chemistry matters. By the time the prey realizes that the corridor has narrowed, an escape is a physical impossibility. The biological outcome has already been decided. The coral reef, for all its apparent wide-open chaos, operates on a very strict set of rules. And the sea snake is one of the few predators on Earth that understands exactly how to use every single, suffocating centimeter of it to its absolute advantage. On the coral reef, the language of violence is almost always spoken through motion. Survival is a high-stakes equation of pursuit and evasion, written in sudden accelerations, frantic changes of direction, and the sheer, desperate muscle power of a chase. A predator lunges, the prey scatters. Danger announces itself with a shifting shadow, a displacement of water, a visual warning that gives instinct just enough time to trigger a desperate flight. The entire ecosystem is built on this fundamental assumption. If you can see the threat coming and if you are fast enough, you might live. The mantis shrimp does not simply ignore this rule. It completely dismantles it. Its hunting strategy does not rely on outswimming its prey. It does not stalk, it does not patrol, and it does not use elaborate camouflage to deceive. Instead, the mantis shrimp bypasses the biological arms race entirely. It shifts the battlefield away from speed and stealth, pushing the encounter into a realm where biology is rendered utterly irrelevant. It wins by pushing the fundamental laws of physics to a breaking point, operating at a scale and a speed where reality itself briefly fractures. At first glance, this animal looks like a biological contradiction. It is incredibly small, heavily segmented, and frequently painted in an absurdly brilliant palette of neon greens, electric blues, and vibrant reds. Tucked away inside a hole in the coral rubble or a burrow excavated in the sandy flats, it looks almost decorative, like a misplaced toy resting on the bottom of the ocean. It does not project the ominous, heavy threat of a shark or the terrifying, fluid reach of an octopus. It sits quietly at the threshold of its burrow, occupying the exact boundary line between the safety of the stone and the exposure of the open reef. From this doorway, it watches, but this is not the passive, lethargic waiting of an ambushed predator hoping for a miracle. It is a state of terrifying high-tension readiness. The mantis shrimp turns proximity into an absolute death sentence. The mechanism of this execution lies in its forelimbs, the raptorial appendages. These are not arms designed for grasping, and they are certainly not muscles designed to throw a punch. To think of them as fists is a fundamental misunderstanding of their anatomy. They are, in the purest mechanical sense, biological firearms. Folded tightly beneath the animal's head, these club-like appendages are cocked and locked into place. They operate on a complex internal system of biological springs, latches, and levers. When the mantis shrimp prepares to strike, it does not simply flex a muscle. It contracts a massive muscle mass against a rigid exoskeleton latch, warping a specialized, saddle-shaped piece of armor on its arm. This saddle acts as a high-tension spring, storing an unimaginable amount of elastic potential energy. The animal is physically holding back an explosion. When the trigger is finally released, the appendage does not swing, it detonates. The club snaps forward with a velocity that the biological world was never meant to endure. It accelerates through the water at speeds rivaling a bullet, leaving the barrel of a .22 caliber rifle. The distance it needs to cover is microscopically small, often just a few inches. But at that scale, speed becomes an absolute, inescapable tyrant. This extreme acceleration is why prey cannot ever hope to dodge or react. In any normal predator-prey interaction, reaction time is the ultimate currency. A crab's eyes must see the incoming threat. That optical signal must travel down the optic nerve to the brain. The brain must process the danger and send a signal down to motor neurons. And the muscles must finally contract to move the shell out of the way. It is a rapid biological chain reaction, but it still takes precious milliseconds. The mantis shrimp strike completely bypasses this timeline. By relying on a mechanical spring release rather than a muscular contraction, the club connects with its target before the prey's nervous system has even finished transmitting the warning signal. A passing snail does not see the blur. A wandering crab does not feel the water shift. 1 millisecond their armor is perfectly intact. The very next millisecond, it is catastrophic shrapnel. But the horror of the mantis shrimp does not end with biological speed. The physics of the strike push the violence into a realm that feels almost science fictional. As the heavily armored club accelerates through the water, it moves so incredibly fast that the liquid ocean literally cannot flow out of its way smoothly. The physical properties of water begin to break down under the extreme velocity. A low-pressure void is violently ripped open in the wake of the swinging club. The water literally tears apart, instantly boiling at room temperature and forming a vapor-filled cavity known as a cavitation bubble. Cavitation is a deeply destructive physical phenomenon. It is a force typically associated with the heavy bronze propellers of military submarines or the churning blades of industrial turbines, where it relentlessly pits and destroys solid steel. It is almost never seen in the biological world. This bubble exists for only a fraction of a blink, but when the surrounding water pressure inevitably crushes it, the bubble collapses in on itself with apocalyptic ferocity. This implosion releases a cataclysmic burst of energy. The collapse generates a localized shockwave, a massive spike in heat, and even a faint microscopic flash of light, a phenomenon known as sonoluminescence. For the prey animal wandering past the burrow, this means that the mantis shrimp does not hit them once. It hits them twice. The first impact is the physical club slamming into their armor with the force of a perfectly swung hammer. The second impact, arriving less than 1,000th of a second later, is a catastrophic implosion of the cavitation bubble, tearing into whatever is left. For the hard-shell prey that the mantis shrimp exclusively targets, the heavily armored crabs, the thick-shell snails, and the rigid bivalves, this double strike is a biological nightmare. Against almost any other predator on the reef, armor is the ultimate defense. A thick shell blunts the teeth of a fish, defeats the crushing jaws of an eel, and dramatically increases the energy a predator must spend to get a meal. Armor forces predators to look for easier targets. But against the mantis shrimp, evolutionary armor is a fatal liability. A rigid, inflexible shell provides the perfect solid surface for the shockwave to express itself. Instead of absorbing or deflecting the blow, the rigid chitin perfectly transmits the extreme, localized pressure spike deep into the animal's body. The shell fractures, but the concussive wave continues inward, liquefying soft tissues. Even if the mantis shrimp's club narrowly misses the absolute center of the target, the secondary shockwave from the collapsing cavitation bubble is often more than enough to stun or kill the prey outright. The mantis shrimp dictates the terms of these encounters by refusing to leave it home. The burrow is both its fortress and its execution chamber. It meticulously constructs its home in the high-traffic zones of the reef, where the current brings a steady parade of foraging crustaceans and mollusks. It waits in the doorway, eyes tracking the environment, clubs tightly coiled. When an armored target drifts too close, The mantis shrimp emerges just far enough to release the spring. The water flashes, the shell shatters, and the shrimp immediately drags the broken pieces backward into the dark to feed. This intense reliance on the burrow adds a deeply territorial layer to the animal's violence. A good burrow is a key to survival, providing protection from larger predators, a staging ground for hunting, and a secure location for mating. Consequently, mantis shrimp defend their homes with a level of aggression that borders on the psychotic. If an intruder approaches, whether it's a curious fish, an encroaching octopus, or a rival mantis shrimp, the response is always the exact same application of overwhelming, instantaneous force. When two mantis shrimp fight over a burrow, the narrow doorway becomes a highly formalized gladiatorial arena. They are both armed with the exact same ballistic weaponry, and both are completely aware of the lethal consequences of a direct hit. They engage in ritualized high-stakes threat displays, evaluating each other's size and willingness to commit. But if the bluffing fails, the strikes are delivered with full, unmitigated intent. The cramped geometry of the burrow perfectly suits this combat. There is no room to maneuver, no space for an evasive retreat. The fight is decided by who releases a spring first and who can absorb the shockwave of the other. To wield a weapon this destructive, the mantis shrimp had to evolve a body capable of surviving its own absolute power. The physical forces generated by the club are immense, and if the appendage were made of standard biological materials, it would instantly shatter upon impact, blowing the shrimp's own arm to pieces. To prevent this, evolution has engineered the club out of a deeply complex composite material that rivals anything created in modern human laboratories. The striking surface is coated in highly crystallized hydroxyapatite, the same incredibly dense mineral that makes up human tooth enamel. Beneath this crushing exterior, the internal structure of the club is composed of layers of chitin fibers arranged in a mesmerizing, twisting helicoidal pattern, resembling a spiral staircase. This specific microscopic architecture is the ultimate biological shock absorber. When the club slams into a crab shell, the impact energy travels through the hydroxyapatite and hits the spiral layers of chitin. Instead of traveling in a straight line and creating a catastrophic crack that splits the arm in two, the energy is forced to constantly change direction as it spirals through the twisted fibers. The impact is safely dissipated into heat and microscopic internal friction. This masterpiece of biological material science allows the mantis shrimp to deliver tens of thousands of ballistic strikes over its lifetime without ever breaking its own weapon. Supporting this mechanical devastation is one of the most absurdly complex visual systems in the known universe. A mantis shrimp possesses massive, compound eyes mounted on independent, highly mobile stalks. They can see in up to 16 different color channels compared to human 3, and they are capable of perceiving both linear and circular polarized light. Their eyes are constantly roving, processing an unfathomable amount of visual data to map the reef in hyperspectral detail. Yet, for all this visual processing power, in an exact fraction of a millisecond when the strike is unleashed, vision becomes completely irrelevant. The speed of the attack is so extreme that the animal cannot visually track the club or make mid-course corrections. The strike is entirely pre-calculated. The shrimp uses its incredible eyes to judge the precise distance, orientation, and timing. But once the biological latch is released, it is an absolute blind commitment. The weapon fires, and the mantis shrimp simply trusts the physics it has set into motion. Ecologically, these tiny, heavily armed creatures are the invisible architects of the reef's balance. By exerting relentless predatory pressure on hard-shelled organisms, they constantly regulate the populations of grazing snails and scavenging crabs. This, in turn, dictates how much algae is consumed and how sediment is turned over across the entire ecosystem. Furthermore, the sheer mechanical destruction they inflict recycles calcium carbonate back into the environment. The shattered remnants of their victims constantly contribute to production of the fine, white coral sand that blankets the tropical seafloor. Despite their terrifying capabilities, the mantis shrimp is a creature of deep energetic economy. The strike itself is over in an instant, but re-engaging the biological latch and physically compressing the massive muscle spring requires a significant investment of metabolic energy. A mantis shrimp cannot fire its weapon continuously like a machine gun. It must choose its moments with cold, calculated precision. It waits until the mathematical probability of success approaches 100% before unleashing the spring. It is not a brute, swinging wildly at shadows. It is an elite sniper, waiting patiently in the doorway for the perfect, inescapable shot. To look closely at the burrow of a mantis shrimp is to see the quiet, violent aftermath of this strategy. Littered around the entrance is a graveyard of perfectly shattered armor. Snail shells split cleanly down the middle, rather than crushed. Thick crab carapaces punctured with terrifying, surgical precision. The reef moves on around this tiny hole. Schools of fish darting overhead, completely unaware of the cataclysmic physics waiting just inside the shadow. Understanding the mantis shrimp forces a complete reevaluation of what makes an animal dangerous. We are taught to fear massive jaws, highly evolved neurotoxins, and the terrifying speed of an open water chase. But the mantis shrimp proves that the most absolute, inescapable trap is not built from teeth or venom. It is built from the fundamental laws of fluid dynamics. Water is supposed to act as a buffer. It is supposed to cushion movement, slow down impacts, and sap the kinetic energy of anything trying to move quickly through it. The mantis shrimp survives and dominates by weaponizing the exact moment when water fails to act like water. In that microscopic fraction of a second, the comforting physics of the ocean are violently suspended, and reality itself becomes hostile. Distance offers no safety. Evolutionary armor provides no protection. Time grants no warning. When the mantis shrimp strikes, there is no escalation, no opportunity to learn from mistake, and no chance of retreat. The event begins and ends before the brain of the victim can even register that the universe has shattered. At the doorway of its burrow, brightly colored and perfectly still, the mantis shrimp waits in a state of perpetually compressed violence, proving that the most lethal force on the reef is not the predator that chases you, but the predator that simply outruns time. At first glance, the lionfish appears to be a walking contradiction, a creature utterly out of sync with the frantic, high-stakes rhythm of the coral reef. In an environment where life and death are separated by milliseconds, where survival is dictated by sudden, explosive accelerations and violent directional shifts, the lionfish moves like a monarch strolling through a garden. Its movements are unhurried, agonizingly deliberate, and almost ceremonial. Its massively elongated pectoral fins are unfurled wide, resembling the delicate, decorative fans of a courtier rather than the lethal tools of a highly evolved predator. It does not dart. It does not surge forward. It seems to drift, suspended in the water column with an eerie, detached calm, displaying apparent indifference to the chaos of the chase going on all around it. To the untrained eye, this creature looks too slow, too fragile, and far too conspicuous to be an effective hunter. It looks like an ornamental mistake. But this aesthetic softness is one of the most brilliant, deceptive masks in the ocean. Beneath that flowing, majestic exterior lies a predator operating on a level of spatial intelligence that makes speed completely obsolete. The lionfish does not need to outrun its prey, because it possesses a methodology that completely redesigns the mathematics of the hunt. It transforms the open water of the reef into a suffocating confinement, and it turns the prey's own survival instincts into the very mechanism of its destruction. The reef is a chaotic, crowded environment. It is a three-dimensional labyrinth overflowing with visual noise, overlapping shadows, and constant, frantic movement. Small prey fish have evolved to survive in this labyrinth by exploiting it. Their bodies are engineered for evasion, capable of exploiting tiny gaps in the coral, executing hairpin turns, and unleashing rapid bursts of acceleration. They are biological machines built to flee, not to fight. Their entire defense mechanism relies on putting physical space between themselves and the jaws of a predator as quickly as possible. The lionfish completely neutralizes this evolutionary advantage by changing the fundamental geometry of the encounter. When it identifies a target, it does not lock its eyes and launch into a high-speed pursuit. A chase implies that the prey has a chance to win if it is fast enough or lucky enough. The lionfish does not leave its meals to chance. Instead of chasing the prey through the open water, it begins a slow, methodical, almost imperceptible advance. As it glides forward, it fully extends those magnificent, elongated fin rays. It stretches them outward and forward, creating a wide, sweeping, semicircular barricade in the water column. These radiating spines are not rigid, physical walls. A panicked fish could, in theory, dart right through the gaps between them. But the lionfish is not building a physical barrier. It is building a psychological one. To a small, hypervigilant reef fish, these massive, unfamiliar shapes suddenly closing in from periphery represent a terrifying uncertainty. The fin rays distort the water, disrupt the visual field, and corrupt the prey's normal escape calculations. The small fish begins to back away. It does not turn and sprint in blind panic, because it does not yet register this slow-moving, drifting creature as a traditional threat in pursuit. It simply feels that the space immediately in front of it is becoming dangerously uncomfortable to occupy. And so, the prey makes a choice. It oscillates backward, executing tiny, nervous flicks of its tail, instinctively trying to maintain a safe, comfortable buffer zone between itself and the strange, radiating fence slowly advancing upon it. This is the absolute brilliance of the lionfish's tactical mind. It is not pushing the prey into a corner by brute force. It is gently, persistently guiding the prey, thereby exploiting the smaller fish's own avoidance behavior. The lionfish lets the prey choose the exact path of its own confinement. As the lionfish continues its measured, unyielding advance, the fin rays spread even wider, effectively acting as a living, breathing net. The buffer zone shrinks. The prey continues to retreat, entirely focused on the closing fan of spines, totally unaware that with every single inch it backs away, its options are being deleted from the universe. The environment of the reef now unwittingly becomes the anvil to the lionfish's hammer. The coral structure is littered with massive heads, sheer rock faces, and dead-end crevices. These structural features severely limit lateral movement. The prey is funneled backward, its escape routes narrowing from a full 360 degrees of open water down to a tight cone, and finally down to nothing. If you were to watch this sequence unfold from directly above, the deadly geometry of the trap becomes terrifyingly obvious. The lionfish constantly adjusts its position, moving just enough to keep that invisible buffer zone shrinking, but never moving so fast that it triggers the prey's explosive flight response. The elongated fin rays begin to curve slightly inward, forming a loose, inescapable arc that gently wraps around the target's peripheral vision. Eventually, the inevitable happens. The retreating prey bumps into a solid boundary, a sheer face of brain coral, a massive sponge, or a jagged wall of limestone. Further retreat is now physically impossible. The living fence of the lionfish locks into place in front. The impenetrable reef locks into place behind. At this exact moment, the psychological fence becomes a literal prison. The prey has not been chased. It has not been physically touched. It has not been struck or wrestled. And yet, it has absolutely nowhere left to go. The space has been completely conquered. The final act of this calculated drama happens with shocking speed, but only after total spatial dominance has been achieved. Once the prey is firmly pinned against the unyielding backdrop of the reef, the lionfish abandons its slow, ceremonial drift. It executes a devastatingly precise, short-range suction strike. The predator's mouth opens with explosive mechanical suddenness, creating a massive, instantaneous pressure drop in the water directly in front of it. There is no dramatic lunge forward. There is no desperate, thrashing attempt to grab the prey. The strike is a masterpiece of economy, relying entirely on extreme proximity rather than momentum. In a fraction of a second, the water and the prey are violently ripped inward. The fish simply vanishes. And then, just as quickly as the violence erupted, it disappears. The lionfish immediately resumes its slow, regal, drifting posture. Its fins remain extended, its body relaxed, acting for all the world as if nothing in the water had just occurred. This hyper-efficient space-controlling hunting method perfectly explains why the lionfish can appear so languid and slow, yet remain one of the most devastatingly effective predators in a marine environment. It has successfully outsourced the requirement of speed to the environment itself and to the prey's own biological instincts. The living fence does all the heavy lifting. By the time the prey's brain finally processes a horrifying reality that its cautious retreat was actually a descent into entrapment, it is already hovering within the fatal suction zone. In complex reef systems where every single coral head serves as a potential backstop, the lionfish never has to search for the perfect hunting ground. The reef provides millions of them, But the extraordinary evolutionary design of the lionfish does not stop at its spatial intelligence. The exact same elongated fin rays that make this psychological herding strategy possible are also the centerpiece of an impenetrable defense. Running along the length of those beautiful, flowing dorsal, pelvic, and anal fins are hypodermic spines, deeply grooved and packed with highly potent, excruciatingly painful venom. These spines are strictly defensive. They are not used to strike or incapacitate prey during the hunt, but their mere presence fundamentally rewrites the risk calculus of the entire reef. In the brutal economy of the ocean, predators learn incredibly fast. Any larger fish, shark, or eel that attempts to bite, swallow, or even aggressively challenge a lionfish receives an immediate, agonizing lesson in consequence. The venom injected by these spines causes intense, radiating pain, localized tissue damage, and systemic distress. This intense negative reinforcement permanently discourages repeated predation attempts. The lionfish effectively walks the reef cloaked in a field of biological immunity that very few other creatures enjoy. This absolute defensive superiority has profound, sweeping consequences for the animal's daily behavior. Because it is heavily armored with venom, the lionfish does not need to hide. It is completely liberated from the exhausting, stressful need for stealth. While other predators must constantly calculate their exposure, lurking in the shadows to avoid becoming someone else's meal, the lionfish hunts boldly, out in the open, in broad daylight. It can afford to move slowly. It can afford to fan its fins widely, deliberately advertising its presence to the entire reef rather than try and conceal it. Its vibrant, disruptive striping is not camouflage. It is a giant biological warning sign. The lionfish survives not by going unnoticed, but through absolute deterrence. This unique combination of fearless, bold hunting demeanor paired with a highly intelligent, inescapable herding strategy has made the lionfish an evolutionary triumph in its native waters of the Indo-Pacific. However, when this exact same biological package is introduced into environments where it does not belong, it transitions from a marvel of nature into an ecological apocalypse. In their invasive ranges, particularly the Western Atlantic, the Gulf of Mexico, and the Caribbean Sea, the lionfish represents a nightmare scenario. In these waters, the local prey species share absolutely zero evolutionary history with this bizarre, slow-moving predator. When a naive Caribbean reef fish sees a lionfish slowly advancing with its fins flared, it does not recognize a fin fence as a deadly threat. It does not understand the spatial trap until its jaws are already opening. Simultaneously, the native apex predators of the Atlantic, the large groupers, snappers, and reef sharks, do not possess the hardwired, instinctual avoidance of the lionfish's venomous spines that predators in the Pacific have developed over millions of years. They may attempt to eat the invasive fish, get severely stung, and subsequently learn to ignore them completely, leaving the lionfish population to grow entirely unchecked by natural predation. The mathematics of this invasion heavily favor the lionfish. They reproduce at a staggering, almost industrial rate. A single female can release buoyant, gelatinous egg masses containing tens of thousands of eggs every few days year-round. These egg masses drift on the powerful ocean currents, spreading the offspring across vast geographical distances. High reproductive output combined with virtually zero predation pressure allows their populations to explode with terrifying speed. Unlike many native reef fish whose numbers are kept strictly in check by a complex web of predators, parasites, and fierce competition for resources, the invasive lionfish operates outside the rules of its new ecosystem. Their fearless behavior, enabled entirely by their venom, allows them to exploit food resources with ruthless, unmitigated aggression. They are voracious consumers, capable of expanding their stomachs to accommodate massive meals. They systematically decimate the populations of small native reef fish. But the ecological horror lies in what those small fish do. They are not just prey. They are the janitors and gardeners of the reef. They are the grazers that eat the suffocating algae. They are the cleaners that pick parasites off larger species. They are critical participants in nutrient cycling. When a booming population of lionfish vacuums these essential small species off the reef, the entire system begins to collapse. Without the grazers, macroalgae grow unchecked, smothering the slow-growing coral, blocking the sunlight, and preventing new coral larvae from settling. The balance between reef builders and reef eroders shatters. The lionfish, simply by excelling at a hunting strategy that targets these crucial species, possesses a power to rewrite the architecture and the health of entire, vast reef communities. What begins as a single, elegant hunt scales up into a catastrophic, ecosystem-level shift. Yet, whether in its native home or devastating an invaded coastline, the lionfish remains one of the most remarkable examples of how evolution can favor spatial intelligence and psychological manipulation over raw, explosive athleticism. Their sensory systems are perfectly tuned to read the reef not as a backdrop, but as a complex, three-dimensional puzzle. A puzzle where understanding the angles, the distances, and the boundaries matters far more than generating speed. While vision plays a crucial role in locking onto a target, the lionfish's lateral line system is the true hero of the herding process. This network of sensory pores allows the predator to constantly detect the incredibly subtle, microscopic water movements generated by the prey as it nervously adjusts its position. This continuous, real-time sensory feedback loop is what allows the lionfish to maintain the exact optimal spacing. It advances just enough to keep the prey feeling pressured and retreating, but holds back just enough to prevent the prey from experiencing the blind, absolute panic that might cause it to forcefully slip through the gaps in the fin fence. It is a terrifyingly delicate dance of psychological pressure. The ultimate irony of the lionfish is that its undeniable physical beauty is a lie. Its flowing, translucent fins, its vibrant, contrasting stripes, and its slow, measured movements project a false aura of fragility and grace. But this aesthetic softness masks a predatory strategy built entirely on cold, mathematical inevitability. Once that living fence begins to close, the outcome is rarely in doubt. The prey's own deeply ingrained survival instincts betray it, twisting its natural caution into its ultimate confinement. The reef, which is normally a vast sanctuary of hiding places and escape routes, is weaponized into an unyielding wall. To truly understand the lionfish, you must abandon the deeply held notion that hunting is always synonymous with pursuit. The lionfish teaches us that predation is not always about running down the weak. Sometimes, it is entirely about control. The lionfish does not need to outrun its prey, because it has the power to reshape the physical space around it. It does not need the element of surprise, because it steadily, methodically removes every single alternative to death. In doing so, it reveals a profound and unsettling truth about survival in complex environments. Success does not always belong to the fastest, the strongest, or the most aggressive. Success often belongs to the animal that understands the geometry of the battlefield better than anyone else. The lionfish is both a biological marvel and a grim ecological warning. It stands as a testament to how a single species, armed with impenetrable defense and a flawlessly clever hunting strategy, can utterly dominate environments that are unprepared for its arrival. Its slow, methodical prison tactic is not just a way to secure a meal. It is a way to conquer without ever having to rush. It is a strategy designed to defeat the concept of space, rather than just a body of prey. Drifting slowly to the warm currents, its venomous fins spread wide like a regal cape, the lionfish turns a boundless, open ocean into a series of tightly closed doors, waiting patiently, endlessly, as its prey backs slowly into the only ending that is mathematically available. When we imagine the concept of danger in the ocean, our minds are deeply conditioned to visualize it as an active, aggressive force. We expect danger to be something that moves toward us with deliberate intent. We look for a dark silhouette accelerating upward from the blue depths, a heavy shadow rapidly closing the distance, a massive predator that makes a conscious decision to attack. We associate survival with our ability to detect this approaching intent and react to it. The box jellyfish takes this entire mental model, this deeply ingrained evolutionary assumption, and shatters it completely. With this creature, there is no pursuit. There is no biological calculation of risk and reward. There is no targeted aggression. The danger does not arrive. It simply exists. The threat materializes in the exact fraction of a second that a living, breathing nervous system unknowingly drifts into a space that the jellyfish already occupies. What makes this animal so incomprehensibly lethal is not its speed, its physical strength, or its size. It is the terrifying, silent way that it completely hijacks the most fundamental, microscopic biological systems that keep a human body functioning at all. When a human being encounters a box jellyfish, the event does not unfold as a fight. It does not look like a struggle between predator and prey. It unfolds as an immediate, catastrophic systemic collapse. A swimmer caught in this trap does not lose a physical battle of strength. Instead, their own central nervous system, their own heart, and their own respiratory muscles are violently overwhelmed in a matter of seconds, often before the brain even has the necessary time to process the incoming neurological signals and recognize the sensation of pain as actual pain. In the water, the box jellyfish barely announces its own physical existence. Its bell, the central body of the animal, is almost entirely transparent. It is shaped like a faint, gelatinous cube that has evolved to interact with light in a way that defies detection. Rather than reflecting the sun, its tissues refract light, bending it seamlessly so that the animal's body simply dissolves into surrounding glare and the shifting, mesmerizing shimmer of the surface waves. In the crystal-clear shallows of the tropics, where the intense sunlight fractures through the water column into thousands of chaotic, moving patterns, the outline of the jellyfish is camouflaged not by pigmentation or texture, but by the fundamental laws of physics. It does not propel itself with the heavy, purposeful thrust of a shark. The ocean currents carry it with a terrifying lack of urgency. Its forward motion is dictated almost entirely by the ambient flow of the water, rather than any conscious intention. To a human swimmer actively scanning the water for the telltale signs of threat, a splash, a fin, a sudden movement, the box jellyfish simply does not register as an animal. If it registers a human eye at all, it looks like a mere optical illusion, a fleeting distortion in the water that the brain immediately dismisses as a trick of the light. The true nightmare, however, extends far beyond the barely visible bell. Trailing beneath and behind the animal are its tentacles, stretching out into the water column like invisible, drifting fishing lines. These tentacles can extend for several meters, sweeping through a massive volume of space. It is absolutely crucial to understand that these are not passive, floating appendages. They are one of the most advanced, hyper-densely packed weapon systems on the planet. Each individual tentacle is armed with millions of highly specialized, microscopic stinging cells called nematocysts. These cells are packed together so tightly that a single, feather-light brush of human skin against a tentacle can trigger an area-wide, catastrophic discharge. Most venomous animals in the world, a snake, a spider, a scorpion, deliver their toxins through a single, localized point of entry, like a bite or a puncture wound. The box jellyfish completely rewrites this mechanic. This is contact-based envenomation scaled across three-dimensional space. One touch of a tentacle does not equal one sting. One single touch equals hundreds, sometimes thousands of microscopic biological hypodermic needles firing simultaneously across whatever surface area they happen to brush against. The injection of this venom is not a conscious, muscular action performed by the jellyfish. It is a decentralized mechanical activation operating purely at the cellular level. Skin pressure alone, or even the faint chemical signature of a foreign body in the water, is enough to release the biological tripwires. The box jellyfish does not ever decide to sting you. It does not possess the brain capacity for intent. Its biology simply ensures that the moment physical contact occurs, that contact automatically, mathematically, becomes catastrophe. What this venom actually targets within the human body is what separates the box jellyfish from almost every other venomous creature on Earth. Many marine stings cause localized tissue damage, extreme swelling, or temporary paralysis. But the toxins loaded into the nematocysts of the box jellyfish are explicitly designed to aggressively disrupt the ion channels in nerve and heart cells. They rip open the cellular doorways that regulate electrical impulses, triggering a rapid, chaotic, and completely uncontrolled storm of neurological signaling. The pain arrives first, but it defies human description. It is not ordinary pain. It is not the sharp slice of a blade or the localized burning of a bee sting. It is explosive. It is deeply electrical. It is an overwhelming, crushing sensation that spreads through the nervous system far faster than the brain can localize or process it. Victims do not feel as though they've been stung on the leg or the arm. They feel as though their entire physical being has been plunged into fire. Simultaneously, as the nervous system screams, the venom violently interferes with the body's cardiac rhythm. The electrical signals keeping the heart beating in time are scrambled. This causes immediate, irregular contractions, massive blood pressure spikes, and often outright cardiac failure. At the exact same time, the toxins compromise the smooth muscles responsible for expanding and contracting the lungs. The result is a devastating, cascading biological failure. The intense, unearthly pain triggers an immediate, massive panic response in the swimmer. Panic naturally accelerates the breathing rate and causes the heart to pump faster, desperate for oxygen. But the venom is actively destabilizing both of those systems. The faster the heart tries to beat, the faster it pumps the destructive toxins through the bloodstream, and the faster the body spirals inward on itself. This terrifying loop is why survivors of severe encounters frequently describe a sensation not as being attacked from the outside, but as being struck from within, as if their own biology had suddenly turned hostile and begun tearing itself apart. In these encounters, the deeply held human idea that danger increases with the duration of contact is entirely misleading. A swimmer does not need to become entangled in the tentacles to die. A brief, passing brush as they swim by can be more than enough to deliver a fatal dose. Because the tentacles are so exceptionally long, thin, and effectively invisible, a swimmer may unknowingly drag their limbs, torso, or neck across several of them at once, creating an instant, massive area of effect across the body. Unlike a shark bite that leaves a massive, obvious trauma, the box jellyfish delivers its lethal payload across a distributed, invisible network. This is precisely why people sometimes suddenly collapse in the shallow water, screaming or falling unconscious, without any visible wounds or obvious cause. Their central nervous system is entirely overwhelmed and shutting down before bystanders on the beach can even begin to comprehend what has happened. The near-total transparency of the animal brutally compounds this effect. We are taught that clear water is safe water. But with a box jellyfish, even in knee-deep shallows, even on the most picturesque, brilliantly sunny days, visibility does not equal safety. The intense sun glare off the surface, the gentle ripples of the tide, and the microscopic suspended particles of sand perfectly hide an organism that relies entirely on invisibility rather than speed or stealth. The sheer terror of the box jellyfish is at the absolute peak of its danger perfectly coincides with the exact moments when humans assume the ocean is at its most welcoming and safe. Calm seas and gentle tides mean that the delicate, gelatinous bodies of the box jellyfish are not torn apart by crashing waves and heavy turbulence. Shallow, sun-warmed beaches concentrate human swimmers into the exact same protected, coastal waters that the jellyfish inherently prefer. Seasonal weather patterns, particularly the shifting winds of the warmer months, gently push these invisible drifters away from the open ocean and directly toward the populated shorelines. These are not rare, unlucky coincidences. They are perfectly overlapping preferences. It is a fatal Venn diagram of human recreation and jellyfish ecology. The animal is not actively invading human space to hunt us. We are unknowingly stripping off our clothes and wading directly into an existing, invisible hazard zone that just so happens to look like paradise. What makes the human fatality rate even worse is the severe delay in cognitive perception. If a swimmer sees a dark, unmistakable silhouette of a shark's dorsal fin, the brain instantly recognizes the form. The amygdala fires. Immediate fear floods the system, and adrenaline fuels a desperate retreat. A jellyfish provides none of these visual triggers. Many victims report feeling absolutely nothing, noticing nothing out of the ordinary, until the pain suddenly detonates across their skin. By the time the brain registers that a threat is present, muscle control is often already severely compromised. Even Olympic-level swimmers can lose their physical coordination in a matter of seconds as the venom violently scrambles their motor neurons. In severe cases, the physiological collapse occurs before the victim can even reach the sand, turning a toxic biochemical encounter into a rapid drowning scenario within moments. This is not because the venom itself acts as an immediate anesthetic. The victim is agonizingly conscious, but because the biological systems required to keep the human body upright, buoyant, and breathing simply become completely unreliable. To truly grasp why this animal possesses a venom so wildly disproportionate to its fragile appearance, we must look at its ecological role. In a marine food web, the box jellyfish occupies a position that seems entirely at odds with its soft, drifting form. It is, in fact, a highly efficient apex predator of small fish and fast-moving planktonic organisms. It uses its vast curtain of tentacles not as a pursuit weapon, but as a massive, drifting, invisible net. The extreme lethality of its venom did not evolve as a defense mechanism against large, thrashing mammals. It evolved for the absolute, instantaneous immobilization of fast-moving prey in a limitless, three-dimensional environment where escape routes are infinite. If a box jellyfish stings a small fish and the venom takes even 10 seconds to work, that fish can easily thrash its way to safety, or its violent struggling might tear the jellyfish's delicate tentacles to shreds. The venom must stop the fish's heart and nervous system instantly. The exact same neurochemical traits that make this venom perfectly effective against a tiny, fast-moving fish make it completely devastating to a massive mammal. Humans lack any evolutionary history with this specific threat. We did not evolve alongside the box jellyfish in a way that granted us biological resistance. We possess no instinctive avoidance pattern, no hardwired recognition of the danger, and no chemical immunity. The biological mismatch is total and absolute. The dark irony of the box jellyfish is that, despite its brainless existence, it does possess a highly rudimentary sensory system. Unlike many other jellyfish, it actually has clusters of functional eyes capable of light detection and recognizing basic shapes. It can orient itself in the water column, actively avoid large, dark obstacles, and gently navigate toward environments rich in prey. But absolutely none of that rudimentary navigation is required for it to be lethal to a human being. It does not need to chase you. It does not need to corner you against a reef. It does not need to react to your presence. Its kill zone exists wherever its invisible tentacles happen to drift. Simply entering that physical space is the only requirement for disaster. This reality flips the entire, traditional predator-prey narrative completely on its head. When dealing with the box jellyfish, survival is not about being a faster swimmer. It is not about having superior situational awareness or greater physical strength. Survival is entirely about the geometry of absence. It is about not being in that specific volume of water at that specific moment in time. Understanding this animal requires us to reframe our concept of ocean risk entirely. The danger of the sea is not always loud. It is not always dramatic, accompanied by thrashing water and rows of serrated teeth. Sometimes, the most absolute danger is utterly silent, perfectly transparent, and already suspended in the water, waiting. It waits not because it harbors malice, and not because it wants to kill, but simply because millions of years of blind, unthinking evolution placed it there long before human beings ever learned to swim. The box jellyfish is not a monster in the cinematic sense. It is a perfectly adapted, flawlessly engineered biological machine, operating exactly as it was designed to operate, in a harsh environment that unconditionally rewards efficiency over spectacle. The catastrophe arises only when a highly complex human nervous system unwittingly intersects with this invisible machinery. To call it a jellyfish attack completely misses the biological truth of the event. This is not about tentacles actively wrapping around a victim, or venom alone, or even the incomprehensible pain. It is a terrifying demonstration of just how fragile our complex biological systems truly are when they are suddenly confronted with a microscopic toxin that has been perfected over eons to dismantle them at the cellular level. The ocean does not always announce its threats. It does not owe us a warning. Sometimes it simply waits, crystal clear, inviting, and beautifully calm, while the most dangerous, lethal mechanism in the water remains perfectly, utterly impossible to see. The coral reef is an ecosystem defined almost entirely by its frantic, unceasing kinetic energy. It is a world of constant, desperate motion. Predators patrol the boundaries with sweeping, muscular grace. Schools of baitfish shimmer and dart in synchronized panic. Even the water itself is relentlessly dynamic, surging and pulling with the eternal rhythm of the tides. In a landscape where survival is so inextricably linked to speed, agility, and the physical ability to flee, danger is universally understood as something that arrives. It is a sudden acceleration, a closing shadow, a violent interruption of the open blue. But there is a creature on the reef that completely, violently rejects this paradigm. It does not swim. It does not chase. It does not stalk, ambush, or pursue. It simply sits in the dark. This is a sea urchin, and it introduces a profoundly different, deeply unsettling kind of terror to the ocean. The threat of absolute, immovable stillness. Danger on the reef does not always announce itself through a flurry of movement. Sometimes it announces itself through a sudden, terrifying absence. It manifests in a way the physical space itself suddenly becomes difficult, painful, or impossible to cross. The sea urchin embodies this architectural threat perfectly. It does not hunt you. It simply waits, rooted immovably to the jagged stone, and systematically turns the substrate beneath it into a literal minefield of agonizing consequences. The trap that a sea urchin creates is not aimed at a specific prey animal, nor is it triggered in a singular, explosive moment of violence. It is an ambient, structural trap. Once a colony of sea urchins establishes itself on a section of the reef, they fundamentally alter the physics of how every single other living organism must move, feed, and survive in their vicinity. From a safe distance, the sea urchin looks deceptively simple, almost primitive. It appears as nothing more than a compact, dark hemisphere, a pincushion of radiating spikes clinging stubbornly to the rock or wedged tightly into a limestone crevice. It possesses no face to project aggression. It holds no posture of muscular intent. There is no gaping jaw, no coiled spring, no visible mechanism of attack. But as you draw closer, the environment around the animal begins to feel perceptibly constrained. The negative space of the reef shrinks. The overlapping spines form a dense, impenetrable thicket. Shadows thicken and stretch across the rock. The narrow gaps and swim-throughs that once looked like safe, inviting corridors suddenly demand terrifyingly careful navigation. Fast-moving predators are forced to abruptly hit the brakes. Gliding grazers hesitate and alter their trajectories. The reef floor immediately stops being neutral, open territory, and starts behaving like a heavily fortified zone of denial. The sea urchin wins the evolutionary arms race by forcing the entire ocean to be cautious. Its central body, the test, is rigid and immobile, but its biological defenses radiate outward in every conceivable three-dimensional direction. The long, rigid spines act simultaneously as impenetrable physical barriers and highly visible warning signals. These spines artificially and dramatically increase the effective size of the animal, projecting a sphere of influence that extends far beyond its actual vulnerable core. Approaching a sea urchin is never a matter of testing your speed or your brute strength. It is a high-stakes calculation of geometry, timing, and agonizing risk assessment. For a predator, whether it's a foraging fish, an octopus, or an eel, one single millimeter-scale miscalculation carries a devastating penalty. A careless swipe of a tail, a poorly angled bite, or a momentary loss of buoyancy in the surge can result in a deep puncture wound. And in the unforgiving, bacteria-rich environment of the coral reef, a wound is rarely just a wound. This passive, unyielding dominance completely reshapes the behavioral traffic of the entire ecosystem. Fish dynamically adjust their swimming paths, taking wide, inefficient detours just to avoid the possibility of physical contact. Foraging invertebrates meticulously alter their routes, abandoning rich feeding grounds if they are too heavily guarded by the spike spheres. Even the massive apex titans of the reef treat dense urchin zones with deep, begrudging respect, skimming along their extreme outer edges rather than daring to swim directly through the gauntlet. The sea urchin does not ever need to actively repel a predator. It does not waste a single calorie on a threat display or a defensive strike. It simply creates a localized zone of absolute denial, a space where movement becomes far too physically expensive, and where the memory of mistake lingers long after the encounter is over. The architecture of the spines themselves is a masterpiece of sadistic, functional design. They are constructed primarily of calcium carbonate, meticulously crystallized from the surrounding seawater. They are engineered to be incredibly strong, fully capable of deterring the crushing bite of the jaw or the blunt impact of a predator's strike. But crucially, they are also designed to be highly brittle. This brittleness is not an evolutionary flaw or a structural weakness. It is a highly calculated, offensive feature. When a predator applies too much pressure and inevitably drives the spine deep into its own flesh, the tip of the spine is designed to cleanly snap off. The sea urchin remains firmly anchored to the rock, but it leaves a piece of itself buried deep inside the attacker. This broken shard of calcium carbonate, often covered in irritating microscopic barbs of marine bacteria, acts as a permanent, festering punishment. It continues to cause agonizing mechanical irritation, inflammation, and infection long after the predator has retreated. It is a delayed release penalty that brutally reinforces the psychological avoidance behavior for the rest of the predator's life. But the horror of the sea urchin's defense does not end with the physical trauma of the primary spines. Nestled deeply between those massive spikes, hidden near the surface of the animal's shell, is a secondary, highly advanced weapon system. These are the pedicellariae, microscopic, highly mobile, jaw-like appendages that look like tiny, venomous pincers on stalks. While the long primary spines keep large threats at bay, the pedicellariae are designed for intimate, close-quarters warfare. If a predator manages to push past the outer spikes, or if a parasitic organism attempts to settle on the urchin's shell, these tiny jaws snap shut with blinding speed. In many species, these pincers are hooked directly to specialized venom glands. They deliver a potent, excruciatingly painful neurotoxic sting directly into the encroaching tissue. Not every single species of sea urchin possesses lethal or highly venomous pedicellariae, but the mere uncertainty of their presence massively amplifies their effectiveness across the reef. A predator cannot easily look at a field of urchins and determine which ones will merely inflict a painful puncture wound and which ones will inject a crippling biological toxin. The Russian roulette of this defense mechanism ensures that the safest choice is always total, absolute avoidance. Because sea urchins never have to run and rarely have to expend energy fleeing, their influence over the environment is allowed to accumulate slowly, relentlessly, over vast stretches of time. They are the ultimate biological engines of erosion and consumption. Hidden entirely beneath their spiky exterior, on the underside of their body, perfectly pressed against the stone, lies a highly complex, five-jawed chewing apparatus famously known as Aristotle's lantern. With this terrifying, grinding mouth, the sea urchin grazes. It scrapes algae, microscopic organisms, and even the top layer of the limestone rock itself, with a slow, mechanical, unceasing persistence. This grazing is not delicate. It is not selective. It is a slow-motion, industrial-scale strip mining of the reef substrate. Over the course of weeks, months, and years, a healthy population of sea urchins can scour massive areas of the reef perfectly clean. They grind away the suffocating blankets of macroalgae that would otherwise block the sunlight and choke the delicate, slow-growing coral colonies. By exposing the bare, clean rock beneath, they create the essential, sterile landing pads required for new microscopic coral larvae to settle, attach, and begin the decades-long process of building new reef architecture. In this perfectly balanced state, the sea urchin is the ultimate ecological gatekeeper. It is a custodian of the stone, literally eating the reef into a state of vibrant health. But when the delicate balance of the ecosystem shatters, often when the massive predators that normally keep urchin populations in check are removed by overfishing or disease, the sea urchin transitions from a vital custodian into a plague of biblical proportions. Without predators to thin their ranks, their numbers explode. The localized, beneficial grazing transforms into an unstoppable, consuming horde. They move across the reef in dense, spiky carpets, scraping every single millimeter of biological material from the stone. The result is one of the most terrifying phenomena in marine ecology, the urchin barren. It is a dystopian underwater wasteland where the vibrant, three-dimensional coral city is stripped down to nothing but blindingly white, dead rock. These shifts are not subtle. They are absolute. The urchins redefine which species can live, which species must starve, and how the fundamental flow of energy moves through the ocean. From the perspective of the sea urchin, there is no grand strategy here. There is no conscious malice. It is simply the terrifying consequence of an animal that has evolved to survive without ever needing to yield a single inch of ground. Evolution favored an organism that could anchor itself in the chaos, defend itself so perfectly that the concept of fleeing was deleted from its DNA, and simply eat whatever the rock provided. By anchoring itself to the floor and radiating pure, unadulterated deterrence outward, the sea urchin turns stillness into absolute power. Predators that have spent millions of years perfecting the art of the high-speed strike, the ambush, and the crushing bite look at the sea urchin and find no entry point. There is no soft underbelly exposed in flight. There is no neck to snap. The cost of failure is agonizingly high, and the caloric reward hidden inside that calcified fortress is frustratingly low. while a very small handful of highly specialized predators, like the triggerfish with its armor-piercing jaws or the sea otter with its rock-wielding intelligence, have deciphered the puzzle. For the vast majority of the ocean, the sea urchin is simply an unsolvable, painful math problem. The visual language of a reef dominated by sea urchins is impossible to misinterpret. The frame is filled with thousands of intersecting spears, radiating outward like a forest of biological warning signs. The fish that do remain hover at a highly respectful, calculated distance, their bodies constantly angled away, primed to abort and retreat rather than advance. The very water around an urchin feels electrically charged, heavy with consequence, even when absolutely nothing is moving. This invisible, psychological tension is the true nature of their trap. It shapes the decisions of predators' brain long before those decisions can be translated into muscular actions. The sea urchin forces us to confront a deeper, more profound truth about survival in the natural world. We are obsessed with the dynamic. We idolize the fast, the strong, the predators that dominate through sheer kinetic will. But the sea urchin proves that not all biological power is dynamic. Some of the most terrifying power on Earth is purely positional. By simply occupying the key surfaces of the world and defending that microscopic patch of real estate with absolute, unyielding prejudice, the sea urchin dictates the terms of life and death for millions of creatures it will never even see. It affects the growth of the coral, the trajectory of the sharks, the hiding places of prey, and the very physical texture of the earth beneath the waves. It changes the outcome of the war without ever joining the battle, without a single chase, without a single strike. To truly understand the sea urchin is to recognize that lethal danger in the ocean does not always arrive with a rush of water and a flash of teeth. Sometimes it is already there. It is heavily armored, deeply embedded in the landscape, and waiting with infinite patience. It does not exist to reward the skilled hunter. It exists exclusively to permanently punish the careless. The ocean learns to live around them, bending its currents of movement and its flows of energy to accommodate a creature that simply refuses to participate in the chase. In the endless, moving expanse of the sea, the urchin stands as the ultimate monument to the power of refusal, proving that survival is not always about moving faster than death, but about making yourself so agonizingly painful consumed that death simply chooses to swim the other way. We are inherently conditioned to view the seafloor as a mere backdrop to the drama of the ocean. It is a stage upon which the grand theater of marine life plays out. We look to the open blue for the sweeping silhouettes of sharks. We look to the twisting coral branches for the darting flashes of prey. The ground beneath all of this is universally treated as inert. It is geology. It is dead sand, broken rubble, and static rock. We place our trust in the substrate, assuming that whatever danger exists in the water, it surely does not come from the earth itself. The stonefish does not simply exploit this universal assumption. It violently, irreversibly punishes it. Nothing about this animal makes sense if you attempt to force it into the traditional framework of a marine predator. It is not built for the blistering pursuit of a tuna, the sensory omniscience of a hammerhead, or the terrifying, claustrophobic cornering of a moray eel. The true, unparalleled power of the stonefish stems from something far more psychologically unsettling. It possesses the evolutionary ability to dissolve into the landscape so completely, so flawlessly, that the environment literally stops registering as biological at all. What makes an encounter with a stonefish so devastating is not that it attacks you. It is that you interact with it entirely under the false pretense that it is a piece of the reef's architecture. If you were to stare directly at a stonefish resting in the shallows, you would not see a fish that is hiding. That is a critical, fatal misunderstanding of its camouflage. Its body is not tucked nervously away behind a protective wall of coral. It is not buried beneath a suffocating blanket of sand. It sits completely, unapologetically exposed on the very surface of the seafloor, occupying the exact spaces where the human eye and the eyes of predators expect to find absolutely nothing of interest. The camouflage of the stonefish does not operate on the principle of concealment. It operates on a far more sophisticated principle of neurological misclassification. When a human brain, or the brain of a passing predator, rapidly scans the complex topography of a coral reef, it takes shortcuts. It sorts shapes, shadows, and textures into rapid, recognizable categories. The stonefish has been ruthlessly optimized over millions of years to fall directly into the least interesting, most easily dismissed category imaginable. It is not read by the optic nerve as an animal. It is processed, categorized, and immediately discarded as inert debris. This terrifying optical illusion is achieved through an extreme, almost grotesque convergence of texture, pigment, and absolute stillness. If you were to touch the skin of a stonefish, a mistake that often proves fatal, you would not feel the sleek, hydrodynamic smoothness that defines almost every other fish in the sea. Its skin is coarse, heavily pitted, and brutally irregular. It is covered from head to tail in fleshy, wart-like protrusions that flawlessly mimic the organic chaos of the ocean floor. These growths replicate the appearance of encrusting algae, the spongy decay of dead matter, and the jagged, white scars of broken coral heads. The pigmentation of the animal constantly shifts and bleeds across a highly muted, depressing palette of dull browns, lifeless grays, and sickly greens. This coloration is heavily broken by chaotic, mottled patterns that exactly mirror the visual static of the surrounding rubble. Many camouflaged animals rely on disruptive coloration, bold, contrasting stripes or spots designed to violently break up their physical outline and confuse a predator's depth perception. The stonefish rejects this. It relies entirely on continuity. Its surface does not interrupt the intense visual noise of the tidal flat. It completes it. It becomes a missing puzzle piece of a dead landscape. But the final, most absolutely critical element of this deception is stillness. A stonefish possesses a terrifying capacity for immobility. It can remain locked in the exact same position for hours, and sometimes for days on end, adjusting its posture only with microscopic, imperceptible shifts required to maintain its balance in the surge or to draw water over its gills. The coral reef is a profoundly dynamic system. It is defined by constant, restless motion. Schools of fish dart and flash, soft coral sway rhythmically in the current. Particulate matter drifts through the water column like snow, and sunlight constantly dances and fractures across the bottom. In an environment where constant movement is the baseline reality, this utter lack of motion reinforces the illusion of inanimacy. Because the stonefish does absolutely nothing, it becomes a fixed geographical point in a moving world. And paradoxically, it is this exact refusal to move that makes it entirely invisible. Motion inherently attracts attention. The absolute absence of motion erases it from existence. This is exactly why people step on them. It is never because the animal was brilliantly hidden from view in a dark cave. It is because the animal was staring them right in the face, fully exposed, and was tragically mistaken for something that could be stepped on with total safety. The danger of the stonefish does not arise from a sudden, aggressive lunge or a desperate, thrashing defense. The danger is born entirely out of human trust. When a person wades into the warm, shallow water of a tidal flat, their foot reaches down to the surface seeking stability. The ocean floor is shifting. The tide is pulling, and the human body instinctively craves a solid anchor. The stonefish flawlessly offers what appears to be a perfectly solid, unmoving surface. The violent interaction is initiated entirely by the victim, not the fish, and the trap is sprung not through a bite or a strike, but strictly through the application of downward pressure. The 13 dorsal spines that jut from the back of the stonefish, defining its terrifying global reputation, are not weapons in any traditional, active sense. The fish does not swing them like a club. It does not aim them. It does not actively deploy them to impale a passing threat. They are passive, structural defenses, deeply embedded along the ridge of the animal's back, hidden beneath a layer of that wart-covered skin. At the base of every single one of these hollow, needle-sharp spines sits a pair of highly pressurized venom glands. When the immense weight of a human foot comes down upon the back of the stonefish, the mechanics of the trap engage with brutal, unfeeling efficiency. The skin sheathing the spines pushes down, and the rigid spikes are forced violently upward, penetrating deep into the soft tissue of the foot. As the spines sink into the flesh, the physical pressure automatically squeezes the venom glands at the base, forcing the highly toxic payload up to the hollow core of the spine and directly into the victim's bloodstream. It is a mechanism that operates exactly like a biological landmine. It is completely passive, requiring zero energy or awareness in the fish itself, but is brutally, unforgivably effective. The mathematical reality of this defense is horrifying. The harder the pressure applied, The deeper the physical penetration of the spines, and the more massive the volume of venom that is mechanically injected. A simple, careless step seeking balance in the surf instantly transforms into a full-force, catastrophic envenomation event. The severity of the agony that follows is a direct, engineered consequence of this specific delivery system. Unlike a superficial jellyfish sting or the grazing bite of a small predator, the stonefish does not deliver its payload to the surface of the skin. It injects its venom incredibly deep into dense muscle mass and vital connective tissue, where the toxin immediately finds massive vascular highways to spread rapidly along the major nerve pathways. The venom itself is a complex, devastating biological cocktail designed to aggressively interfere with cellular signaling and cause intense, localized tissue necrosis. But its primary objective is the generation of pure, unadulterated pain. Victims universally describe the sensation not as a sharp sting or a localized ache, but as an immediate, overwhelming, and violently radiating explosion. It is a crushing, expanding sensation that instantly dominates the entire sensory field of the brain. The pain is so absolute, so disproportionately severe, that it frequently becomes neurologically disorienting. It rapidly disrupts the victim's sense of balance, shatters her physical coordination, and completely overwhelms any capacity for rational thought. This extreme level of suffering is not a biological accident. The venom evolved for a highly specific defensive purpose: to deter massive, heavy-jawed predators that might attempt to swallow or crush the stonefish whole, such as giant groupers, aggressive reef sharks, or foraging marine mammals. If a massive predator were to bite down hard on a stonefish, the immediate, debilitating explosion of pain would trigger an involuntary gag reflex, forcing the predator to violently spit the stonefish out long before its crushing jaws could inflict fatal internal damage. The tragic flaw in this evolutionary design occurs when it intersects with humanity, when this system is triggered not by the bite of a fish, but by the full, crushing weight of a walking human being. The mechanical pressure delivers a volume of venom that is magnitudes larger than was ever meant to in a natural, defensive context. The stonefish does not possess a cognitive ability to scale its response or offer a warning sting. The environment simply applies a physical force, and the biology responds with absolute, maximal retaliation. Yet, what often goes completely unnoticed in the terrifying shadow of its defensive capabilities is the fact that the stonefish is also a highly specialized, incredibly patient predator in its own right. It does not waste a single calorie chasing fish across the sprawling expanse of the reef. It simply waits. Small, foraging fish and crustaceans that drift lazily near the seafloor are naturally funneled by the subtle pull of the ocean currents, the physical contours of the reef's architecture, and their own blind foraging habits directly into the stonefish's immediate strike zone. When an unaware prey item drifts within a few microscopic inches of the rock-like face, the illusion of death instantly shatters. The stonefish opens its cavernous mouth with a speed that defies its lethargic appearance, creating a violent, localized vacuum that instantly pulls the surrounding water and the prey inward. The entire strike sequence is executed and completed in a fraction of a millisecond. And then, just as rapidly as it moved, the stonefish violently snaps its jaws shut and instantly returns to its state of absolute, petrified stillness. The digestion of the prey begins in total silence, without a single ripple of fanfare or celebration. In this incredibly efficient manner, the coral reef essentially spoon-feeds the stonefish via constant, automated deliveries. The shifting currents act as invisible conveyor belts, relentlessly moving small prey past the predator's fixed position time and time again. The jagged structure of the rubble actively channels the movement of smaller fish, mathematically increasing the probability that they will pass dangerously close to the living rock. Because of this, the stonefish almost never needs to reposition itself. Once it selects a highly productive current-swept bottleneck, it can remain cemented to that exact spot for days, hoarding its energy while the dynamic environment does all the exhausting work of the hunt. This strategy makes perfect evolutionary sense in nutrient-dense reef systems where the overall prey density is incredibly high, but the individual movements of those prey are highly unpredictable. The internal metabolic rate of the stonefish perfectly mirrors the sedentary, low-impact lifestyle. It is simply not engineered for sustained, high-speed activity. It is not built for the chase. It is built entirely for absolute efficiency. Every ounce of its biological energy is meticulously invested into maintaining its flawless camouflage, constantly synthesizing its complex, neurotoxic venom and powering the explosive, fast-twitch muscles required for its vacuum strike, rather than being wasted on the endurance required for swimming. This makes the stonefish a radically low-energy predator, a creature that has mastered the art of thriving by actively minimizing its own effort rather than attempting to maximize its physical output. In the grand ecological ledger, it occupies a highly specific niche that massively rewards infinite patience over athletic performance. This passive dominance has incredibly broad, subtle implications for the dynamics of the entire reef. By relentlessly preying on the small, bottom-dwelling fish that navigate the very floor of the ocean, the stonefish quietly dictates the behavior and the geographical distribution of these vital species. Over vast stretches of evolutionary time, small fish learn to instinctively avoid certain suspicious textures, unusual lumps, or ambiguous shapes on the seafloor, even if their rudimentary brains cannot consciously identify the specific threat. The unseen, ambient presence of the stonefish contributes to a constant, underlying evolutionary pressure that shapes exactly how prey animals utilize the lower levels of the reef, fiercely reinforcing the absolute necessity of hypervigilance near the substrate. Fear, operating silently in the background, becomes an invisible ecological force that organizes the chaotic traffic of the ocean. The catastrophic danger that the stonefish poses to humans is merely an unintended, tragic byproduct of this delicate, ancient evolutionary equilibrium. Stonefish did not evolve to harm people. They derive absolutely zero biological benefit from injecting venom into a human foot. The encounters occur almost exclusively in the warm, incredibly shallow coastal waters where humans love to wade, along the gentle shorelines, the expanse of tidal flats, and the shallow, sunlit edges of the coral reef. These are the exact same environments that the stonefish naturally favors. They do not congregate here because they are seeking out human presence. They are here because these shallow, protected zones provide the perfect, stable substrate, incredibly high volumes of small prey traffic, and vital protection from the tearing forces of the deep ocean currents. Understanding this ecological overlap completely shifts the narrative away from one of cinematic monster movie fear and toward one profound environmental awareness. The stonefish is not a malicious ambush predator lying in the shadows, actively plotting to attack a passing human. It is a static, perfectly integrated organism that has merged its very biology with the reef's physical structure. The catastrophic risk only arises when human beings fail to read the environment correctly, arrogantly treating the seafloor as a dead, inert carpet rather than a living, breathing ecosystem. In the complex machinery of the reef, the ground itself possesses the ability to bite, to sting, and to inject lethal venom, not out of spite or malice, but simply because millions of years of rigorous evolution have successfully blurred the boundary line between the organism and the environment to the point of absolute invisibility. The profound, underlying irony of the stonefish is that its entire evolutionary success depends completely on being ignored. The exact second it is recognized by a brain as a living animal, its entire supreme advantage vanishes into thin air. Small fish will simply dart away from it. Larger predators will learn to treat it with extreme caution, and humans will simply step carefully around it. It's flawless. Textured camouflage only functions as a lethal weapon so long as the observer implicitly accepts the visual lie of the reef at face value. Once you truly understand that the coral reef is not merely a beautiful, colorful backdrop for a vacation, but highly complex, living system layered with invisible traps, hyperspecialists, and brutal passive defenses, the stonefish instantly becomes less of a terrifying mystery and far more logical, inevitable conclusion. Seen through this lens, the stonefish is not a freak of nature or an anomaly. It is a profound, painful lesson. It physically demonstrates exactly how evolution can take absolute stillness and weaponize it. It shows us that true, lethal danger in the natural world does not always announce its arrival through aggressive movement, loud threat displays, or the baring of massive teeth. It proves that sometimes the absolute most effective, devastating defenses in the animal kingdom are the ones that never, ever have to be used intentionally. The seafloor of the ocean is not neutral ground. It is never a safe zone. It is a highly active, participating player in the brutal game of survival. And in the specific case of the stonefish, the earth itself is the trap. When you slowly wade into the warm, inviting waters of shallow reef, you are not merely swimming above the biological life of the ocean. You are physically stepping down into a highly pressurized system with a dead rock. The swaying algae and a living animal have seamlessly merged into a single functional and highly lethal surface. The stonefish occupies that terrifying boundary perfectly. It is a silent, unmoving reminder that in the depth of the ocean, the difference between a harmless piece of landscape and a fatal organism is sometimes nothing more than a split-second mistake of human perception. Our planet's story is vast, and we are just scratching the surface. If you want more premium documentaries that reveal how our world truly operates, leave a like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments what we should explore next. Welcome to the Earth documentary community.